Chapter 1689. After everything slowly calmed down, there was a 200,000-meter wide crater in the ground. It was a ghastly sight, shocking and frightening. Traces of aura rose up from the crater, and each trace gave off an aura of destruction. This place had lost all signs of life, and it was impossible for any living creature to survive here. That was how terrifying that power was. Who won now? Countless people's gazes fell on the crater. It was most likely that the victor had been decided. The three of them had most likely used their full power to unleash such terrifying power, and it was impossible for them to have held back. A pile of rubble rolled out as a person covered with blood walked out. This person was wearing a tattered cloak, and it was Zhao Fu. There was no second person from the crater, and some people looked at the points and found that the 5th and 4th place geniuses had fallen while Zhao Fu's ranking had risen to 3rd place. From this, it could be seen that Zhao Fu had won. Countless people cried out in alarm, expressing their excitement and shock. Heavens! That person really defeated 2 geniuses by himself. That person is too amazing, and I'll worship him in the future. There shouldn't be many people who can compare to him. Just who is he? My blood is boiling. 7 of the Outlander race's top 10 geniuses have been defeated by him. Who can compete with him? I like him so much. I feel so blessed to be his woman. I really envy those women who have received his favor. They all have such a powerful man. He's ridiculously powerful. Before, I didn't have much confidence that he could win, but he hid such terrifying power. I'm completely convinced. I'm so excited. He really won. It was worth it for me to support him this entire time. The surroundings were sent into an uproar as everyone discussed Zhao Fu and became even more curious about Zhao Fu's identity. With Zhao Fu's ability to summon the 6 paths demon images, Zhao Fu's position in the underworld was incredibly important, and ordinary imperial princes could not compare to him at all. Now almost no one dared to call Zhao Fu a perverted bandit or a bastard. They were all filled with shock, respect, and terror. Instead, many women wanted to throw themselves into Zhao Fu's embrace. The 2 empires that had wanted to kill Zhao Fu at all costs now lowered their standards. Before, they had wanted Zhao Fu to marry into their empires, but now they were thinking about how to marry the 2 princesses over. With Zhao Fu's terrifying power and his ability to summon the 6 paths demon images, it was possible that the faction behind Zhao Fu was dozens of times more powerful than their empires. They were in a weaker position and did not deserve Zhao Fu's status, so they felt quite worried. If they could form an alliance with such a terrifying faction, their empires would become much more confident. As such, almost everyone agreed to marry the 2 princesses over, and they no longer felt any anger or hatred. Even though their princesses had lost, the Fox race's people did not feel much anger or animosity towards Zhao Fu. After all, Zhao Fu had used his true strength to defeat their princesses, and he had fought 1 against 2. Even though their princesses had lost, they accepted it wholeheartedly. After all, their strength was inferior to Zhao Fu's, and that person was already so terrifying. Losing was not too shameful. The Fox race's higher-ups thought about how Zhao Fu had teased Hu Baimei and felt that Zhao Fu was very interested in Hu Baimei, and they even wanted to marry Hu Baimei to Zhao Fu. Firstly, Zhao Fu's status and strength were already higher than Hu Baimei's, and they felt that he was not inferior to their empire. Secondly, the Fox race's higher-ups quite liked Zhao Fu and felt that he had great potential. In the future, his name would shake the heaven-awakened world, and he would become one of the most dazzling people in the world. As such, they wanted Hu Baimei to marry him. They knew that Zhao Fu was quite dissolute, but they could still accept it. However, as the most powerful Fox race's empire, they were a top-tier faction even in the Outlander domain and had terrifying power. As such, they had a requirement that Hu Baimei had to be the Empress Dowager. The Dragon Person Empire's people looked quite serious because they found that that mysterious person had a supreme dragon bloodline, which was the highest bloodline in the dragon race. They guessed that Zhao Fu was not someone from the death race but a terrifying figure from the dragon race. As dragon people, they were part of the dragon bloodline. Facing such a person, they felt a sense of respect and wanted to have a good relationship with him in the future. With Zhao Fu's abilities and strength, it was worth it for them to do so. Even though their imperial prince had lost to Zhao Fu, they could still accept it. Whether it was in terms of bloodline or strength, Zhao Fu was stronger than their imperial prince. They also wanted to marry their princess over, even if she was not the Empress Dowager. If they could obtain the dragon race's supreme bloodline, it would be of great help to their empire and would be incredibly important. The teachers from Outlander 10 College were also quite shocked that Zhao Fu had defeated 2 geniuses by himself. The elegant-looking woman gave a flirtatious smile as she said, "We've underestimated him. His strength is actually so terrifying. Also, Dongling, you said that he couldn't even defeat the 6th-ranked genius, but he defeated 2 geniuses by himself. What do you have to say?" The serious-looking middle-aged man had a cold expression as he said, "He has indeed surpassed my expectations. I've underestimated this brat. From the looks of it, his identity really is a bit special, making it hard for people to determine what race he is. However, from the power he displayed, his identity is definitely quite terrifying. He's worthy of my attention, but facing the 3 people standing at the top, I'm not sure if he has the ability to defeat them." The gnome elder nodded and said, "I underestimated him. I never thought that a Harmony Realm cultivator like him would be able to come this far and fight 7 great geniuses by himself. This isn't something that ordinary geniuses can do. No wonder countless people worship and respect him. However, I still don't like his character, and I don't think he can defeat the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf is our Outlander race's most dazzling genius, and everyone can only live under his light. It's impossible to surpass or defeat him, and he's the limit of our Outlander race." The chubby bear person elder laughed as he said, "I'm still on that boy's side. I think that he will once again surpass our expectations. I have this feeling." The elegant-looking woman looked a bit curious as she smiled and asked, "Do you think he's that person from the preamble?" Chapter 1690. The gnome elder nodded in agreement and said, "That's definitely impossible. No matter how monstrous his strength is, even defeating the Sun Elf is impossible. After all, he's not from our Outlander race. How could he be the Outlander race's king of kings?" Even the bear person elder who supported Zhao Fu seriously nodded and said, "That's indeed impossible. If he's not from our Outlander race, it's impossible for him to pull out the King of Kings sword. If he's from the Outlander race, perhaps it's possible." The fox race man nodded, "That's right. No matter how monstrous his strength is, if he's not from our Outlander race, how could he pull out the King of Kings sword? I think that the person who made the prophecy is the person who caused the 23 statues to react. It's just that it's a bit strange that that person hasn't appeared after so long. He's hidden himself quite well. However, at the final moment, he'll definitely appear, and I'm looking forward to that." The elegant-looking woman lightly laughed as she said, "I'm also looking forward to that person's appearance. However, if that person wants to pull out the King of Kings sword, his greatest obstacle will be the Sun Elf. I'm sure a terrifying battle will erupt between the 2 of them." Hearing this, everyone else nodded. The Sun Elf's expression became quite serious, and he started to take notice. That person was coming too ferociously, and he could not help but take notice. That person had just defeated the 7th-ranked person, so he naturally did not care too much. After all, with his strength, he would be able to easily defeat that person. However, that person had made it this far and was ranked 3rd on the rankings. His strength was simply terrifying. The Sun Elf sensed an incredibly ferocious monster leaping at him from below, its eyes looking at him savagely. Medusa changed her mind and treated Zhao Fu as her opponent. Now, in terms of points, Zhao Fu was ranked third behind her. Moreover, she had never fought with him before, so she did not know just how strong Zhao Fu was. Even though she had a proud personality and did not place anyone in her eyes, she was not stupid. With such a ferocious monster by her side, she could not ignore its existence, or else she would not even know how she had died. From Zhao Fu's performance, it was enough to make her an opponent. Soon, that person would find her and challenge her. The treasure dwarf's expression was a bit ugly. Although he hadn't fought against that person, Zhao Fu's points had already surpassed him and pushed him to fourth place. In other words, Zhao Fu had already defeated him. Now, the treasure dwarf did not dare to be careless at all. He no longer killed creatures that were worth points, as there was no point in doing so. At this moment, that person had defeated the fourth ranker and would soon find him. The two of them would definitely have a fierce battle, so the treasure dwarf did not dare to be careless. He recovered his strength and faced that person at his peak state. Outside the mystic realm, the ogre was about to enter the mystic realm to continue the test, while the lion man was recovering from his injuries. The three-headed ogre naturally knew that the lion person had also been defeated by that person, and he felt quite shocked. Just how powerful was that person to have defeated another genius? He felt a bit better. If someone stronger than him had been defeated, it would not be too shameful for him to lose. At that moment, two figures flew out, covered with blood and looking quite heavily injured. The ogre looked quite surprised as he found that these two people were the fourth-ranked dragon person and fifth-ranked Hubaime. How did both of them come out with heavy injuries? Thinking about the experiences of the other geniuses, the ogre understood something and felt quite shocked. The fourth-ranked and fifth-ranked people had both been defeated by that person? That person was quite terrifying. The lion person, who had been recovering, looked at the two heavily injured people in shock. He had never thought that they would also be defeated by that person. However, this was just their guesses, and the ogre could not help but ask, "Were you also defeated by that person?" The dragon person nodded and sighed, his expression becoming quite unsightly. Both of them had been defeated by that person, and that person had challenged both of them by himself. In the end, they had still lost, making them feel quite embarrassed. It was the first time they had suffered such a blow. Hubaime angrily coldly harumphed, "That bastard's strength is too terrifying, and he's extremely arrogant. He challenged both of us by himself, and in the end, that bastard won. I'm so angry." Hearing this, the ogre and lion person looked quite shocked. That person had challenged two geniuses by himself and had won. No wonder they had come out together. They had been defeated by that person together. That person had once again exceeded their expectations. How could he have such great strength? They felt a trace of fear in their hearts. Moreover, they had always felt that Zhao Fu had been hiding his strength. Now, it was proven that Zhao Fu had not used his full strength, making them feel quite dispirited. At that moment, Hubaime accidentally pulled on her wounds and cried out in pain as she said angrily, "That bastard doesn't even know how to be gentler to a weak woman like me. Next time, I'll definitely teach him a lesson." The ogre felt quite surprised. It was the first time he had seen Hubaime like this. Normally, she looked incredibly flirtatious and seductive, making people unable to stop themselves. However, the ogre was quite powerful and could resist Hubaime's bewitching power. He asked curiously, "What's the situation like inside? Also, how is that person?" The dragon person's expression became serious as he said, "That person is ranked third and has most likely been injured. After he recovers, he will challenge the top three." These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. The top three people gave them massive pressure and felt that they were inferior to them. They felt a trace of fear within their hearts. This was the power of the top three. The lion person said seriously, "Do you think that person will be able to challenge the top 3? Hubaime pouted as she said, "I think that bastard might be able to challenge the top 2 and 3, but facing the top-ranked Sun Elf, that's impossible. Even though that bastard is strong, he's not a match for the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf is too terrifying." The ogre said, "If he can challenge the 2nd and 3rd places, his strength is quite terrifying and is far stronger than ours. If he can temporarily take 2nd place, I can't help but feel admiration towards him." The lion person nodded in agreement and sighed as he said, "I wonder who that person is to be so powerful." Chapter 1691. Over at Zhaofu, he found a secluded place and started to recover from his injuries. This time, his injuries were quite severe, and it took him 3 days to fully recover. After defeating the 4th-ranked and 5th-ranked geniuses, Zhao Fu obtained many benefits. He first obtained a large number of points, and a massive amount of Outlander fate flowed into his body, causing the bottleneck to become weaker and weaker. He was 1 step closer to awakening his Emperor Star. On that day, the women found Zhao Fu, the 2 princesses, the 4 goddesses, and the ogre chief. Because they were quite close, they could sense each other. Seeing Zhao Fu, the women happily leapt into Zhao Fu's embrace. They knew what Zhao Fu had done in the secret realm, which had caused massive waves. Everyone in the secret realm knew about it. The Outlander race's 7 most powerful geniuses had all been defeated at his hands. This was something they could be incredibly proud of. Now that they were the women of such a legendary man, they felt incredibly happy. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and hugged the women as he said, "What is it? Why do you all look so happy?" The dragon princess happily smiled as she said, "Of course we're happy to see husband. Husband, you've been gone for so long and haven't come back to find us, so we can only go and find you. Also, husband, you're simply too powerful. Just who are you? How can you have such terrifying power? All of our Outlander race's 7 geniuses were defeated at your hands." The elf princess also coquettishly laughed. "Husband, your power has surpassed our imaginations. Your power is truly beyond our imagination. Now that you're proposing to our empire, we'll definitely be overjoyed to have such a powerful son-in-law like you." Zhao Fu did not care too much about this and said, "My goal is to defeat the Outlander race's 10 geniuses, and I'm going to defeat the 3rd-ranked treasure dwarf." The women could already guess what Zhao Fu was thinking, but hearing Zhao Fu say it, they could not help but feel quite shocked. After all, those were the 3 legendary geniuses of the Outlander race. "Husband, are you really confident? Those 3 are far stronger than the others." All the women looked at Zhao Fu with concern. A smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he said, "That's all I know. You guys don't have to worry about it. Also, I'm going to challenge the 3rd-ranked person now. You guys wait here for a while, I'll come back later." Hearing this, the women smiled and nodded before blushing and saying, "Be careful, husband, we'll watch your battle from the outside. After you win, we'll serve you well." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded, then turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the horizon. After a while, Zhao Fu landed on a flat piece of land. There was a dwarf sitting cross-legged on the ground, his body emitting the light of treasures. At this moment, the treasure dwarf slowly opened his eyes, looked at Zhao Fu and said, "You're the person who defeated the 7 geniuses? You look quite ordinary, and your cultivation is only at the harmony realm. However, I won't lose to you." As he spoke, the treasure dwarf got up from the ground and took out a silver hammer with a serious expression. Zhao Fu did not say anything and took out the Emperor Killing Sword. The people on the viewing platforms once again felt incredibly excited. That person was challenging the 3rd-ranked treasure dwarf, who was one of the 3 most powerful people. There would definitely be an intense battle between the 2 of them. If that person could defeat the treasure dwarf, he would be even more terrifying. His fame would increase, and he would step onto the path to godhood. He would become a legendary figure of the Outlander race, and countless people would look up to him. Back at the battlefield, Zhao Fu held the emperor-killing sword and gave off a massive sword chi as he rushed at the treasure dwarf. The treasure dwarf also gave off a powerful aura as he held his hammer and rushed at Zhao Fu. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, sending out an enormous black sword light and giving off sharp power as he slashed towards the dwarf. The dwarf swung out with his hammer, giving off ferocious energy as he slammed towards Zhao Fu. The two terrifying waves of power collided together, and a terrifying shock wave spread out, causing a wild gale to blow and the ground to crack. The two of them were forced back a few steps. Zhao Fu sent large amounts of divine power into the emperor-killing sword, causing it to give off a sharp sword light. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, sending out sharp black sword lights that ferociously slashed towards the dwarf. The dwarf sent large amounts of power into his hammer, causing it to give off a powerful silver light. The dwarf vigorously swung out, giving off shocking destructive power as he slashed towards Zhao Fu. Bang! 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 Explosions sounded out as the countless sword lights were shattered by the hammers. Sword lights shot out in all directions, creating a gale that spread out in all directions. Boom! The dwarf suddenly exploded out with massive power, and the hammer in his hand gave off an intense silver light as he swung out with terrifying power. The sword light was instantly shattered by the hammer, and the terrifying power continued towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and blocked with his sword in front of him while unleashing a defensive barrier. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu's body was sent flying back, and the defensive barrier shattered, turning into countless shards and disappearing. Boom! The dwarf once again swung out with his hammer, sending out a ferocious destructive power and bringing with it a gust of wind as it flew towards Zhao Fu. After flying back, Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out with his sword, sending out a massive black sword light with shocking power. Bang! The two waves of power collided, resulting in a massive explosion. The explosive power turned into wild gales that blew out. Zhao Fu stopped flying back and his gaze became serious. This dwarf's power was quite great. Bang! 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 This time, the dwarf attacked again and again with his hammers, sending out massive waves of energy. His hammers gave off an aura that seemed to be able to destroy everything, and they easily blasted open large craters in the ground. When they landed on boulders, they instantly shattered them, giving off ferocious sounds. Zhao Fu lightly cried out, "Sword Master!" A sword hum sounded out as a massive storm of sword chi spread out. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and a massive black crescent gave off a sword intent that seemed to be able to cut through everything as it slashed towards the dwarf. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the boundless energy was blasted apart, turning into a ferocious gale that spread out. However, the sword light dissipated and did not continue to attack the dwarf. The dwarf coldly harumphed and sent massive amounts of power into his hammer, causing it to give off an intense light. A terrifying power spread out, and the space around it seemed to twist. Zhao Fu's expression was serious as he activated the Emperor-killing sword's power, and an extremely sharp sword intent spread out. Boom! Chapter 1692. Xing. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and a sword light containing shocking power flew out incredibly quickly. It instantly tore through the air, bringing with it a sword wind. Bang! The two attacks collided, exploding out with terrifying destructive power. Countless rays of light blasted out, and a shock wave rippled out. The ground instantly crumbled, and the two dwarves were sent flying back and crashed to the ground, bleeding from their wounds. Boom! The dwarf furiously got up from the ground and exploded out with a powerful aura. A silver aura flame appeared around his body, and he rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu wiped away the blood from his lips and got up from the ground, and a massive black aura flame appeared around his body. A powerful gale blew out. Bang! The dwarf rushed in front of Zhao Fu and raised his hammer as he slammed it towards Zhao Fu, bringing with it immense power. Zhao Fu dodged to the side, avoiding this attack, and his sword gave off a sword light as it stabbed towards the dwarf's head. The dwarf dodged to the side, avoiding Zhao Fu's attack, and he gripped his hammer and vigorously swung it at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu flipped in the air and arrived behind him, and his sword gave off a sharp sword light as it slashed towards the dwarf's back. The dwarf hurriedly turned and slammed out with his hammer with terrifying power. The hammer brought with it an intense gale. Bang! The sword and hammer collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A shockwave spread out, forcing both of them back 6 or 7 steps. The dwarf roared, and the silver aura flame around his body became many times more powerful, exploding out with even greater power. Zhao Fu also ignited his divine bloodline, causing a massive black blood-red flame to burn around him. The two different colored aura flames continuously clashed, forming wild gales that blew out in all directions. Roar! The dwarf raised the hammer in his hand, which gave off an intense light. A massive, muscular bull image appeared, giving off a powerful aura and giving off a ferocious aura. It was quite terrifying. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out as Zhao Fu raised his sword, which gave off boundless sword light. A domineering black dragon appeared behind him, giving off a powerful dragon's might. The dwarf's hammer descended, and the bull seemed to go berserk as it gave off a ferocious aura and rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's sword slashed out, and the black dragon gave off a massive aura as it rushed over. Bang! Another massive explosion sounded out as the two massive beasts collided, causing a terrifying energy to spread out. The ground instantly collapsed, and the two people were once again sent flying by the impact. Boom! Boom! Before the fluctuations subsided, two beams of fiery light shot towards Zhao Fu with immense heat. Zhao Fu was alarmed and immediately activated an energy barrier. Bang! The two beams of fiery light slammed into the barrier, resulting in a massive explosion. The energy destroyed the barrier, and Zhao Fu's body was sent flying. The dwarf gave off a powerful aura as he rushed over, his eyes giving off a fiery light. It was as if the two beams of light had been shot out from his eyes. The dwarf rushed in front of Zhao Fu and raised his hammer, giving off terrifying power as he smashed it towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's heart tightened and he hurriedly dodged to the side. Bang! The hammer heavily smashed against the ground, causing a terrifying force field to ripple out. The ground in the surrounding dozens of meters instantly crumbled, and even though Zhao Fu had dodged the main attack, he was still caught up in the shockwaves and was sent flying. Zhao Fu crashed 10 or so meters away, and he once again coughed up a mouthful of blood. The dwarf turned his head and his eyes gave off an intense fiery light as two beams of fiery light containing terrifying power shot out towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's right hand quickly spun, and a massive wave of ghostly qi flowed out and gathered in front of him. Bang! The two beams of fiery light shot into the ghostly qi and once again exploded, causing the ghostly qi to explode and dissipate. However, Zhao Fu was not injured. The dwarf swung his hammer, sending out a terrifying wave of power towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, sending out a sharp sword light towards the dwarf. The two attacks collided, resulting in an explosion that turned into a ferocious gale and dissipated. At that moment, the dwarf suddenly kicked off the ground with one of his feet. His foot gave off a silver aura that entered the ground, causing Zhao Fu's body to sink down. He felt a massive power weighing down on his body, and a silver magic formation appeared on the ground beneath his feet. That power heavily weighed down on Zhao Fu's body, making it difficult for Zhao Fu to move and make it impossible for him to escape from the magic formation. The dwarf gave a trace of a cold smile and held his hammer as he gave off a terrifying aura and rushed at Zhao Fu. The cross-shaped pupil in Zhao Fu's right eye and the 6 gray dots quickly spun as a massive wave of cold ghostly qi flooded out. Arg, the ghostly chi formed malicious ghosts that howled and gave off ferocious ghostly chi as they rushed at the dwarf. Roar! Facing the countless ghosts, the dwarf opened his mouth and gave off a massive roar. Waves of corporeal sound waves spread out, bringing with them terrifying destructive power as the ground started to crack. The countless ghosts that surged over were instantly destroyed by the terrifying sound wave, turning into countless wisps of ghost chi that dissipated. The dwarf gave off a terrifying aura and continued to rush at Zhao Fu. This was how powerful the treasure item dwarf was. Every part of their bodies could be used as a powerful treasure item, and ordinary people would not be a match for them at all. This was why the treasure item dwarf was one of the 3 most terrifying people in the Outlander race. Clang, clang, clang. Zhao Fu gathered a wave of power in the golden pupil in his left eye, and chains shot out from behind Zhao Fu. All of them contained immense power as they shot towards the dwarf. The dwarf's eyes gave off a trace of savageness as he sent a massive wave of power into his hammer, causing it to give off an intense silver light and a dangerous aura to spread out. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the dwarf vigorously swung out with his hammer, bringing with it a terrifying force. The space around it seemed like it was going to shatter, and cracks appeared. Bang! 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 This terrifying force instantly shattered the countless chains that were shot out. Countless fragments of the chains shot out in all directions. The dwarf continued to rush at Zhao Fu and soon arrived in front of Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body was still bound by the silver magic formation and he could not move. The dwarf gave a trace of a smile and gripped his hammer with both hands as he gave off a terrifying power as he smashed towards Zhao Fu. He thought that this person's strength was only SOSO, and even though he was quite powerful, he would still lose to him. Chapter 1693. The people on the viewing platforms started to feel nervous. Would that mysterious person lose because of this? He was the person with the most potential to challenge the top 3. If he won, the legend of the top 3 would be broken, and if he lost, the top 3 would continue to exist as legends. Boom! The hammer gave off a terrifying force as it slammed towards Zhao Fu, resulting in a massive sound and a wild gale. Seeing that the hammer was about to hit Zhao Fu did not panic at all. A sword-shaped black and blood-red eye gave off an icy coldness as it looked at the dwarf. The dwarf felt quite startled and his hairs stood on end. Shing, 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 countless traces of black and blood-red sword chi containing power that seemed to be able to slash through everything flowed out and quickly flew towards the dwarf, giving off terrifying sounds. Bang! A massive sound rang out as the dwarf was sent flying and heavily crashed to the ground, opening up a large crater, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Boom! An explosion sounded out as a massive ghostly flame burst forth around Zhao Fu's body, and cold winds blew out. At the same time, a terrifying power spread out from Zhao Fu's body. The silver magic formation on the ground gave off an intense silver light, wanting to continue to seal Zhao Fu's power. A silver light covered Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu vigorously struggled and broke free from the sealing power. The silver light disappeared and he stomped on the ground. A massive wave of ghostly energy slammed into the ground, causing it to crack and the silver magic formation to disappear. By now, Zhao Fu had already used the 6 Paths Demon Image's power. His body gave off a ghostly flame, causing the heavens and earth to dim and clouds to swirl. A cold and eerie aura flooded out like a flood. Arg! The dwarf gave a massive roar as a terrifying power exploded out from his body. The dwarf grew a head and 2 arms, and a silver aura flame appeared around his body, dyeing the sky silver. At the same time, the dwarf took out a sword, a saber, and an axe. He gripped a weapon in each of his 4 arms and his body gave off a silver light, making him look like a war god. Boom! The dwarf gave off a terrifying aura and looked like a godly spirit. He held 4 weapons, and each of them gave off a terrifying light as he rushed at Zhao Fu, resulting in massive explosions. Boom! Zhao Fu also took out the sadistic killing sword, holding the sadistic killing sword in one hand and the emperor killing sword in the other, sending massive amounts of power into the 2 swords. The 2 swords gave off shocking sword lights, and Zhao Fu gave off a wave of power as he rushed at the dwarf. Bang 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 bang, massive explosions sounded out as the dwarf swung his 4 weapons, giving off terrifying energy as he ferociously slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu continuously slashed out with his 2 swords, sending out terrifying sword lights towards the dwarf. Waves of terrifying power spread out, causing the ground to continuously collapse and sending out massive gales. Countless trees swayed and boulders rolled about. The heavens and earth dimmed as terrifying auras flooded out. Sensing this terrifying aura, countless people's expressions fell, and they excitedly gathered in that direction. Just as they had expected, that mysterious person was challenging the 3rd-ranked legendary genius. That was the 3rd-ranked legendary genius, and he was someone that ordinary people could not even touch. It was very rare to see him fight with his full strength. Now that both sides had exploded out with such terrifying shockwaves, the battle would definitely be intense. Countless people felt even more excited as they watched the 2 of them fight. Bang! 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 The 2 of them continued to swing their weapons, continuously sending out terrifying power and clashing, sending out terrifying shockwaves. Boom! 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 The dwarf sent terrifying power into the 4 weapons, causing them to give off an intense silver light. The dwarf vigorously struck out with the 4 weapons, and 4 terrifying waves of power blasted towards Zhao Fu with immense destructive power. Shing! Shing! Zhao Fu also sent large amounts of power into his 2 swords. One sword gave off a cold and powerful sword intent, while the other gave off a berserk sword intent. As the 2 swords slashed out, 2 shocking sword lights flew out. Boom! The 2 terrifying waves of power clashed together, causing a terrifying shock wave to explode out like an energy barrier. The ground, rocks, trees, and everything else within the shock wave were all blasted apart. The 2 of them flew backwards and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. There were some wounds on their bodies, and blood dyed their clothes red. Bang! 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 The dwarf got up from the ground, and his 4 eyes gave off brilliant fiery lights as 4 searing beams of light shot towards Zhao Fu. The surrounding temperature quickly rose, and it was as if he was next to a furnace. Zhao Fu's heart tightened, and he blocked with his swords in front of him. The cross-shaped pupil in his right eye continuously spun, and a massive wave of ghostly qi spread out, forming an enormous ball of ghostly qi that covered Zhao Fu's body. Bang! 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 4 massive explosions sounded out as the enormous ball of ghostly qi was blasted apart, and Zhao Fu's body was blasted back. The dwarf gave a trace of a cold smile and gave off a terrifying aura as he rushed at Zhao Fu. Clang, 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 the sound of chains could be heard as chains containing terrifying power shot out from the ground towards the dwarf. The dwarf's 4 arms swung, and the 4 weapons shot out with terrifying power, shattering the incoming chains and causing countless broken chains to fly everywhere. Shing! Shing! A sword hum suddenly sounded out as Zhao Fu swung his 2 swords, slashing out a crisscrossing sword light that contained immense power towards the dwarf. The dwarf felt quite startled and blocked with his weapons in front of him. Bang! The 2 sword lights gave off terrifying power as they slashed against the weapons, and the dwarf felt a massive force hit him. His body flew backwards and crashed to the ground, and he felt a sweetness in his throat as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Shing! A massive sword hum sounded out as Zhao Fu raised the emperor-killing sword and pointed it at the sky. A massive wave of power entered the sword, and the emperor-killing sword gave off an intense sword light as it shot into the sky. Heaven and earth power madly gathered, forming a massive vortex, and a black magic formation containing destructive power appeared. Zhao Fu's sword descended, and the magic formation gave off countless rays of sword light as it spun with terrifying power. Boom! 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 Terrifying black sword lights containing world-destroying power descended from the sky and slammed into the dwarf's body, resulting in massive explosions. Waves of destructive aura spread out, and the ground continuously collapsed. Chapter 1694. Everyone wanted to see Zhao Fu win, as Zhao Fu was the underdog challenging someone so high and mighty. This made them feel even more excited, as they were also the underdog and felt the same, so they stood on Zhao Fu's side. However, everyone was disappointed. After everything settled, the dwarf did not seem to have been injured at all and stood at the center of the crater. There was a four-colored barrier protecting the dwarf's body, and this four-colored barrier was a bit special. First, there were four palm-sized lifeforms made of energy floating around the dwarf. One was a yellow divine dragon that gave off yellow light and an earthly aura. One was a white bird that gave off white light and an aura of the sky. One was a black insect that gave off black light and an aura of the void. One was a fish that gave off blue light and an aura of time, and one was a fish that gave off blue light and an aura of time. The four creatures gave off light, forming a four-colored energy barrier that gave off an aura that seemed to belong to the heavens and the earth. The dwarf looked at Zhao Fu and said confidently, "You're very strong to be able to force me to use my final trump card. You should be proud of yourself, but since I've used this trump card, it means that you'll definitely lose." Zhao Fu did not reply, and his expression was serious as a few sword lights containing terrifying power slashed towards the dwarf. Bang! 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 Massive sounds rang out as the sword lights slashed against the four-colored barrier with terrifying power. However, not only did the barrier not tremble, but it did not even leave a mark on it. This made Zhao Fu feel quite startled. He had never thought that the barrier would be so tough. Even though he had not used his full strength in those attacks, they still contained terrifying power, but they had not left a mark on the barrier at all. Zhao Fu had never expected this and felt quite shocked. The dwarf said arrogantly, "Ha ha ha, no matter what you do, you won't be able to break through my barrier. Did you know? This is eternal protection, one of the Heaven-Awakened World's 6 great heaven-defying magic formations. Do you really think you can break through it? I originally planned to use this to challenge the Sun Elf, but I never thought that I would use it so quickly. That's why I said that you'll definitely lose." Boom! With this four-colored light shield, the dwarf rushed towards Zhao Fu like a ferocious beast, making an explosive sound. Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he sent a massive amount of power into his two swords and vigorously swung them out. Two terrifying sword lights containing power that seemed to be able to slash through everything slashed against the four-colored barrier, but they did not even leave a mark. The dwarf directly ignored Zhao Fu's attack and swung his four weapons, giving off terrifying power as he attacked towards Zhao Fu. Right now, Zhao Fu was in a completely passive state. He couldn't attack the dwarves at all and could only defend passively. The people in the stands and the surrounding people had not expected this. The situation was not favorable for that person at all. It was very likely that he would lose. Eternal Protection was one of the 6 great heaven-defying magic formations, and it was a type of defensive power that had been split off from the Eternal Protection formation. As for why it was called the Eternal Protection formation, it was because no one could break through it. Even the most terrifying celestials would not be able to do so. Otherwise, it would not have been called one of the 6 great heaven-defying magic formations. Even though this Eternal Protection was not as powerful as the true Eternal Protection formation, it had unimaginable defensive power and was almost impossible to break through. The 6 great heaven-defying magic formations had disappeared from the world for a long time, and no one knew how the dwarf had obtained Eternal Protection. With this power, he could indeed challenge the first-ranked Sun Elf. Bang! The four weapons gave off intense lights and terrifying power as they tore through space and blasted Zhao Fu back to the ground. He heavily smashed open a large crater, and Zhao Fu coughed up a large mouthful of blood. The dwarf stood in the air and arrogantly laughed as he said, "I already said that it's impossible for you to defeat me. If you don't want to die, quickly admit defeat and I won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." The people in the stands and the surrounding people inwardly sighed. Admitting defeat was the best choice. Facing eternal protection, the dwarf was in an invincible position, and that person would definitely lose to the dwarf. It was a pity that that person had already defeated 7 geniuses and was going to stop here. However, as one of the 3 legendary geniuses of the Outlander race, they were not people that ordinary people could defeat. Zhao Fu's expression was serious as he looked at the dwarf and said, "Unbreakable? I'll see if I can break it today." The dwarf gave off a trace of condescension as he loudly laughed and said, "You can try." After speaking, the dwarf gave off a massive aura and continued to attack Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu lay on the ground and slowly closed his eyes, and his expression became calm as he said, "Celestial mode. Activate." Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive rainbow-colored aura flame burst forth, giving off terrifying power as it covered the surrounding 10,000 meters. Everything in the surrounding 10,000 meters was instantly annihilated, and a massive crater appeared. The sky was dyed rainbow-colored and clouds swirled as terrifying auras flooded out, causing the entire world to tremble. Standing at the center of the aura flame, Zhao Fu's eyes gave off a rainbow-colored light, and a ring of rainbow-colored runes appeared around Zhao Fu. Right now, Zhao Fu was like a celestial, unrestricted by the world's laws. Time seemed to stop around him, and space twisted around him. Every trace of his aura seemed to contain the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Sensing Zhao Fu's terrifying power, the dwarf felt quite shocked because he sensed a power that only a celestial could have. However, this person only had Harmony Realm cultivation. How could he have the power of a celestial? The people on the viewing platforms and in the surroundings gulped in shock. They had never thought that Zhao Fu had been hiding such terrifying power. Zhao Fu's expression was cold, and there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. He slowly stretched out a hand and vigorously grabbed at the air, and the rainbow-colored aura flame continuously gathered, forming an illusory celestial sword made of aura flames. Zhao Fu looked at the dwarf, causing the dwarf to feel quite startled and unable to react. By then, Zhao Fu had appeared in front of him, and his sword gave off silent power as it slashed against the four-colored barrier. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the dwarf felt as if he had been hit by an entire world. His body quickly fell and heavily crashed into the ground like a meteor, and a terrifying shock wave rippled out, causing the ground in the surrounding tens of thousands of meters to collapse. Chapter 1695. The people on the viewing platforms and in the surroundings looked incredibly shocked. That person's eternal protection had been destroyed in a single strike. That person's power was simply unimaginable and was simply too terrifying. Was this really power that a mortal could control? Everyone present gasped in shock at the sight of this sword. They had not expected that this person would still be hiding such terrifying strength at this time. How would the dwarf deal with this terrifying celestial-like person? His greatest trump card, eternal protection, had been destroyed in a single strike. Everyone's gazes were focused on the battlefield. The dwarf's face became pale. He had never thought that this person would be so terrifying and be able to destroy eternal protection, which could block all attacks. Facing such a terrifying person, what could he do? Zhao Fu held the rainbow-colored aura flame sword and pointed it at the dwarf as he said, "Fight or surrender?" The dwarf hesitated. With his current strength, he could not defeat Zhao Fu at all. Rather than being heavily injured and retreating, it was better to admit defeat. As such, he sighed and said, I admit defeat and I'll give you 1/3 of my points." Right after he spoke, Zhao Fu received a system announcement that he had obtained 1/3 of the dwarf's points, and he felt a massive amount of fate flow into him. Zhao Fu did not do much. Since he had defeated the dwarf, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and disappeared over the horizon. He then returned to where he had been to recover from his injuries. That person really won and defeated one of the 3 legendary people. He's simply too powerful. Countless people could not help but cry out in excitement. Now, that person was going to become a legend, and in the future, all Outlanders would know of his existence. Those who had thought that it would be impossible for Zhao Fu to defeat the dwarf were all dumbfounded. They had never thought that Zhao Fu, who was only in the Harmony realm, would actually be able to win. This was completely out of their expectations. Now, Zhao Fu's fame had reached its peak and surpassed the first-rank Sun Elf, and he was the center of attention. After Zhao Fu returned to where he had been, the women excitedly waited for Zhao Fu. After all, their man had broken a legend and become an existence that countless people looked up to. He had become a legendary figure in countless people's hearts. Zhao Fu first recovered from his injuries, and after lingering with the women for a while, he started to challenge the second-ranked Medusa. Medusa looked at Zhao Fu seriously. This man in front of her gave her an unfathomable feeling and was incredibly terrifying. She did not dare to be careless, and she officially listed Zhao Fu as her opponent, an existence on the same level as the Sun Elf. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up and his eyes lit up. Zhao Fu looked at the beautiful Medusa in front of him. She had a beautiful face, tender skin, and long green hair. With her peerless beauty, she was at least in the top 3. However, Zhao Fu's mind was not on this. He drew the emperor-killing sword and said, "There's no need to say anything else. Let's begin." Medusa snorted and stretched out her hand. A blood-red 3-pointed bone trident appeared in her hand. Boom! A powerful azure aura flame burst forth from Medusa's body, turning into wild gales that blew over, bringing with them an eerie and evil aura. Boom! Seeing this, Zhao Fu did not hesitate and exploded out with his own power. A black aura flame erupted around his body, and a powerful gale blew out. Shing! Zhao Fu was the first to attack, and a massive black sword light containing ferocious power slashed towards the Medusa. Medusa casually waved her bone trident, and a blood-red arc of light containing shocking power shot towards Zhao Fu. Bang! The 2 attacks collided, resulting in an enormous explosion. Cold light shot everywhere, and a powerful gale spread out. Zhao Fu leapt forwards into the air, and the emperor-killing sword gave off boundless sword light and terrifying power as it slashed down towards Medusa, drawing out a massive arc of light. Medusa did not move at all, and her bone trident gave off a terrifying blood-red light. She vigorously swung it, sending out a massive blood-red crescent towards Zhao Fu. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the 2 attacks collided, resulting in a shocking shockwave. The ground instantly collapsed, and Zhao Fu was knocked back 10 or so meters while Medusa did not move at all. Zhao Fu's expression was serious. This Medusa was indeed more powerful than the dwarves. He did not hold back, and a powerful black aura flame erupted, sending out a massive gale. Zhao Fu once again used his divine bloodline's power. Medusa's expression was cold as she sent a powerful wave of power into her bone trident and stabbed towards Zhao Fu. Boom! 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 The 3 blood-red rays of light gave off terrifying piercing power as they shot towards Zhao Fu incredibly quickly, tearing through the air in an instant. Zhao Fu held the emperor-killing sword and lightly cried out, "Sword Master!" An extremely sharp sword chi exploded out from the emperor-killing sword, sending out a powerful storm of sword chi. Zhao Fu gripped the emperor-killing sword and vigorously slashed out, sending out a sharp black arc of light. Bang! 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 The 3 blood-red rays of light were slashed apart by Zhao Fu's sword, turning into countless rays of blood-red light that shot out in all directions. Suddenly, Medusa appeared in front of Zhao Fu and swung her bone trident, giving off immense power as she slammed it towards Zhao Fu, causing the air to explode. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and blocked with his sword. Bang! Zhao Fu felt a massive force hit him, and his body was sent flying dozens of meters before he stopped and his expression became even more serious. Roar! 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 9 massive dragons' roars sounded out from within Zhao Fu's body, and a terrifying power spread out, causing the ground to crack. Zhao Fu raised the emperor-killing sword and 9 massive, savage black dragons giving off terrifying power appeared behind Zhao Fu. They gave off an incredibly powerful dragon's might and the surrounding space seemed to sink, causing people to feel terror. Medusa's expression was cold as she raised her bone trident, and an even more massive azure aura flame flowed out, bringing with it wild gales. The massive azure aura flame continuously changed, forming a massive azure snake that gave off an incredibly terrifying aura. Its azure eyes looked at Zhao Fu, giving off a chilling intent that could cause one's hairs to stand on end. Boom! Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and the 9 black dragons gave off terrifying power and ferocious auras as they rushed towards Medusa. Boom! Medusa also slashed out with her bone trident, and the azure snake gave off terrifying power and an eerie aura as it shot out like a bolt of lightning, giving off a massive explosion. Bang! Chapter 1696. Zhao Fu was blasted back by the shockwaves and crashed to the ground. A trace of blood leaked out of his lips, and he was slightly injured. Medusa stood where she was and an azure energy barrier appeared around her, blocking all of the shockwaves. She was not injured at all, and her expression was cold as she vigorously swung her bone trident. An azure crescent containing terrifying power slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu hurriedly dodged to the side, avoiding this attack. Bang! The azure crescent slammed into the ground, resulting in a massive explosion. Rocks flew everywhere, and a massive crack appeared on the ground. Boom! Zhao Fu's right hand quickly spun, and a massive wave of ghostly qi flowed out, turning into countless malicious ghosts that flooded towards Medusa. Facing the countless ferocious ghosts, Medusa expressionlessly raised her bone trident and a terrifying wave of power flowed into it, causing a powerful azure light to shine out from the tip of the bone trident. Swish, 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 countless streaks of azure light containing sharp power shot out in all directions. There were countless streaks of azure light. The sounds they gave off were quite shocking. The azure rays of light easily pierced through the malicious ghosts' bodies, causing them to howl as their bodies turned into ghostly qi and dissipated. When the azure rays of light hit the ground, they left behind holes that were a few meters deep, looking quite shocking. SSS. A long hiss sounded out as Medusa once again swung her bone trident, and a massive azure snake suddenly appeared, giving off a cold and eerie power as it shot towards Zhao Fu like a bolt of lightning. Zhao Fu was unable to react in time and was sent flying, crashing into a large tree, causing many cracks to appear on the tree. Leaves fell like rain, and Zhao Fu coughed up a large mouthful of blood. If you don't use the power that you used to defeat the dwarves, it's impossible for you to defeat me. Medusa's voice was cold as she said confidently to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt a trace of coldness in his heart, and he understood how powerful Medusa was. If he did not use Celestial Mode's power, he would not be able to defeat her, so he said, "As you wish. Celestial Mode, activate." Boom! A massive rainbow-colored aura flame erupted around Zhao Fu's body, rushing 10 or so meters into the air and creating powerful gales. Zhao Fu's eyes gave off a rainbow-colored light and a rainbow-colored rune circle appeared with Zhao Fu at the center, and a celestial-like might covered the surroundings. Sensing this wave of power, Medusa felt quite shocked. She understood that it was this wave of power that had defeated the third-ranked treasure dwarf. Boom! Medusa did not hide anything and also exploded out with a terrifying aura. A massive green aura flame erupted around her body, bringing with it wild gales, and an eerie and evil power spread out like a flood. Zhao Fu held the emperor-killing sword, and a massive wave of power flowed into it, causing the emperor-killing sword to burn with a rainbow-colored aura flame. It gave off a terrifying sword aura, and with this power, Zhao Fu rushed towards Medusa. Medusa sent a massive amount of power into her bone trident, causing it to give off an intense green light and give off a terrifying aura. Medusa also rushed towards Zhao Fu with this power. Zhao Fu slashed towards Medusa with that terrifying power, sending out a rainbow-colored sword light that seemed to be able to destroy all things. Medusa vigorously swung her bone trident, giving off an extremely terrifying power as she slashed towards Zhao Fu, bringing with it an intense green light. Bang! A massive sound rang out as the two terrifying powers collided, causing a terrifying shockwave to spread out. The shockwave contained shocking power as it flashed past, causing the ground, trees, and rocks to all shatter. A massive gale was created, causing countless trees to sway and sand to fly everywhere, making it seem like a disaster. Both of them were sent back dozens of meters by the impact, and blood leaked out of their mouths as they looked at each other seriously. Sssst. Medusa vigorously swung her bone trident, and three massive green snakes gave off terrifying power as they shot towards Zhao Fu like bolts of lightning. Zhao Fu slashed out, sending out a sharp sword light that split open the first green snake's head. The second snake opened its mouth and ferociously bit towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu slashed out and a sword light shot out, slashing into the snake's mouth and splitting it in half. The final snake gave off ferocious power as it slammed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gripped his fist, and a rainbow-colored aura flame covered his fist. He vigorously punched out, sending out a terrifying power that seemed to be able to shatter boulders. Bang! The power slammed into the incoming snake, causing it to explode into countless motes of green light and dissipate. Suddenly, Medusa's body appeared in front of Zhao Fu and her bone trident gave off a ray of light as it stabbed towards Zhao Fu with terrifying power, bringing with it a powerful gale. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and blocked with his sword in front of him. He quickly exploded out with a rainbow-colored aura flame, forming a firm rainbow-colored energy barrier. Bang! The bone trident gave off shocking power as it slammed into the rainbow-colored energy barrier, resulting in a muffled explosion. The rainbow-colored energy barrier shattered, and Zhao Fu's body flew back and crashed to the ground as he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Medusa gave a trace of a cold smile as she leaned forwards and shot towards Zhao Fu like a ray of green light. Zhao Fu looked furious as he half-squatted on the ground and gathered a massive amount of power in his palm, causing it to give off a rainbow-colored light. He ferociously pressed it against the ground, causing a massive sound to ring out. At the same time, the golden pupil in Zhao Fu's left eye quickly spun. Clang, 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 rainbow-colored chains containing great power shot out from the ground towards Medusa. There were many of them, at least 100,000 of them, creating a shocking scene. Medusa felt quite startled. Facing the countless rainbow-colored chains, she sent a massive amount of power into her bone trident, causing it to give off a blinding green light. Medusa vigorously swung it, and a terrifying green crescent containing destructive power slashed out. Bang! 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 The green crescent gave off terrifying power as it slashed the countless rainbow-colored chains into pieces, causing them to fly everywhere. However, there were still many rainbow-colored chains that shot out from the side and bound up Medusa's body. Boom! A terrifying power exploded out from Medusa's body. The azure aura flames around Medusa's body doubled in size, and the countless chains binding her shattered under that terrifying power. However, Zhao Fu appeared in front of her and his sword gave off an enormous rainbow-colored sword light as it slashed towards Medusa. Medusa panicked and immediately used her bone trident to block in front of her body, and an azure energy barrier appeared around her. Bang! Chapter 1697. Boom! Medusa furiously crawled up from the ground and exploded out with an incredibly powerful aura. Countless traces of azure aura flooded out like a flood, bringing with them an extremely cold and evil power. An eerie and cold aura spread throughout the heavens and earth, making people feel as if they had fallen into an icy cavern. All of their hairs stood on end and they felt terror. The green mist-like aura continuously turned into 1-meter-long snakes that slithered towards Zhao Fu. There were hundreds of thousands of them, and they seemed to cover the heavens and earth as they attacked Zhao Fu, creating a terrifying scene. Zhao Fu's expression was quite serious as he raised the emperor-killing sword, and a rainbow-colored sword light shot into the sky. Massive amounts of heaven and earth power continuously gathered, forming a massive whirlpool. A rainbow-colored sword formation giving off terrifying power appeared. As the sword descended, the rainbow-colored magic formation started to spin and give off a faint light as a destructive aura spread out. Boom! 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 Rays of rainbow-colored sword light giving off world-destroying power slashed towards Medusa. The heavens and earth continuously trembled as spatial cracks appeared, creating a terrifying scene. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as the countless rays of sword light collided with the flood of small snakes. A terrifying shockwave blasted out, bringing with it a power that could destroy everything. The ground, trees, flowers, grass, and boulders all shattered. A gale quickly spread out, carrying with it countless rocks and sand. Countless trees swayed and boulders rolled, creating a shocking scene. A crater that was tens of thousands of meters wide appeared in the ground, and the people on the viewing platforms looked at this terrifying scene in shock and excitement. Sensing those terrifying ripples, the countless people in the surroundings looked incredibly excited and gathered. They understood that those terrifying ripples were from the mysterious person challenging the second-ranked genius. When they arrived and saw the horrifying scene, they were also shocked. Within the crater, Zhao Fu and Medusa both had a few wounds on their bodies, from which blood flowed out. Their auras were quite weak, and it seemed that their injuries were not light. Boom! A massive green aura flame once again appeared around Medusa's body, and a terrifying power spread out as Medusa vigorously swung her bone trident. Hiss, hiss, hiss! The hundreds of 1,000-meter-long green snakes gave off massive hisses and gave off immense power as they flooded towards Zhao Fu, giving off destructive power. Ah! Zhao Fu roared as an even more powerful rainbow-colored aura flame exploded out from Zhao Fu's body, covering the surrounding 10,000 meters. In that instant, the ground in the surrounding 10,000 meters completely collapsed. Zhao Fu raised the sword in his hand and countless rainbow-colored aura flames gathered and flowed into the emperor-killing sword, causing it to burn with an intense aura flame. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, giving off a massive explosion. A world-destroying sword energy slashed out, turning the ground, space, rocks, and everything else into dust. It was unstoppable and unstoppable. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as the terrifying sword energy collided with the hundreds of 1,000-meter-long snakes, resulting in a terrifying explosion. It was as if a massive energy barrier had appeared, causing the ground to continuously tremble as terrifying auras spread out. After everything settled, Zhao Fu and Medusa lay on the ground, covered with blood, and their auras had become even weaker. Both of them had suffered from 2 massive attacks. If it was an ordinary person, they would have died after only taking 1 attack. Everyone looked at the 2 of them in shock and thought to themselves, as expected from a battle between 2 geniuses. Just a casual attack from them could destroy the heavens and earth. Seeing that both of them were heavily injured, did this mean that the battle was over? Had the 2 of them fought to a draw? Just as everyone thought to themselves, boom! A massive aura flame continued to burn as a powerful energy exploded out, causing a wild gale to blow into the air. Zhao Fu once again stood up from the ground. Everyone felt quite delighted. If Zhao Fu could stand up, the victor of this battle would be Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu would have successfully challenged the second-ranked genius, and would receive even more respect and admiration. Boom! A terrifying green aura flame burst forth, bringing with it an incredibly terrifying power. An eerie gale spread out, and the Medusa crawled up from the ground. One was a black aura flame that dyed the surroundings black, while the other was an azure aura flame that dyed the surroundings azure. The two aura flames continuously clashed, sending out even more intense gales that caused the heavens and earth to change colors and clouds to swirl. In just an instant, Zhao Fu dragged the emperor-killing sword and gave off a terrifying aura as he rushed at Medusa, slashing out powerful sword lights. Medusa held her bone trident and gave off terrifying power as she rushed at Zhao Fu, slashing out crescents that gave off immense destructive power. Boom! 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 The two terrifying powers continuously clashed, causing loud sounds to ring out. Powerful shockwaves spread out, causing the ground to continuously crumble. Arg! Zhao Fu roared and exploded out with all of his divine power, sending it into the Emperor-killing sword. The Emperor-killing sword gave off an intense sword light, and Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out. An incredibly sharp sword intent containing enough power to slash apart worlds slashed towards Medusa. Arg! Medusa cried out and exploded out with all of her power. The bone trident in her hand ignited with an enormous aura flame, and Medusa vigorously slashed out. A powerful destructive power blasted out, causing space to seem to shatter and countless cracks to appear. Bang! The two powers clashed together, resulting in a massive sound, and both of them were sent flying back by the shockwave. Medusa coughed up a large mouthful of blood. After a while, the two of them got up again and looked at each other solemnly. Swish! Medusa held her bone trident and gave off a powerful aura as she shot out like a bolt of lightning. The bone trident gave off terrifying power as it stabbed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not move, and the bone trident pierced through Zhao Fu's chest with shocking power. A muffled explosion sounded out, and a fist-sized bloody hole appeared, causing blood to fly everywhere. This caused Medusa and everyone else to feel quite startled, unable to understand what had happened. How could Zhao Fu have been killed so easily? With such an injury to his chest, he would have died without a doubt. It's such a pity that such a terrifying figure died just like that. Countless people were in disbelief. Zhao Fu's corpse slowly fell to the ground before suddenly disappearing, and a strange figure appeared behind Medusa. Medusa felt quite startled and could not react in time. Pooh! Zhao Fu held the emperor-killing sword and stabbed it through Medusa's abdomen. His left eye became a glass pupil that gave off boundless glass light. Chapter 1698. Everyone once again looked quite confused. They had never thought that Zhao Fu, who had just been killed, would suddenly appear behind Medusa and turn the tables. Some of the more powerful people said that Zhao Fu had used an extremely powerful illusion to deceive everyone's eyes. Everyone in the surroundings felt quite shocked. This illusion was simply too powerful. You can actually affect these people who are outside. The Medusa Empire's people all let out sighs of relief. Fortunately, Zhao Fu had not stabbed any of Medusa's vitals, or else her life might have been in danger. Losing such an extraordinary genius was a massive loss to the Empire. They felt quite grateful towards Zhao Fu because they understood that Zhao Fu had held back, or else Medusa would not have been able to escape from the secret realm. Now that the second-ranked Medusa had been defeated, countless people became even more excited. That person was the second-ranked genius of the Outlander race and was only below the Sun Elf. He had become a legend and was worshipped by countless people. The spectator stands were boiling with excitement. Loud noises reverberated in all directions. Even those who were far away could hear the commotion and feel the excitement. By now, almost everyone knew of his existence, and they could see a resplendent star slowly rising up, illuminating the surroundings. Everyone felt incredibly respectful, and did not feel unconvinced at all. It was impossible for them to have such monstrous power as Zhao Fu. At the same time, they felt incredibly happy because Zhao Fu, with his mediocre status, had defeated the 9 geniuses. This caused those who were not as powerful as the 9 geniuses to feel incredibly excited, and it gave them even greater encouragement. This was the first time such a terrifying person had appeared in history. After this, that person would definitely cause massive waves among the Outlander race. Under countless people's gazes of admiration, and fear, Zhao Fu returned to his original place, covered in injuries. After coming to where they were before, the women did not dare to disturb Zhao Fu because they knew that their man had just defeated the second-ranked genius of the 10 great geniuses, a legendary figure. Even with their status, they were still shocked by this matter. They couldn't help but feel endless admiration for Zhao Fu. At the same time, they rejoiced that they had such a terrifying man. 4 days later, Zhao Fu slowly opened his eyes. The countless totems on his back seemed to come to life, flowing around Zhao Fu's back and giving off all sorts of lights. After defeating Medusa, Zhao Fu once again obtained a massive amount of Outlander fate, and he was one step closer to breaking through. Now, only one of the top 10 geniuses remained, and that was the owner of the Outlander Emperor Star. He was a legend of the Outlander race, and he was someone who could not be surpassed. Not only were countless people in the stands looking forward to this battle, waiting quietly, countless people in the secret realm also came to the center of the secret realm to wait. They knew that the final battle would erupt here. The Sun Elf had a golden sword at his waist, and was dressed in golden clothes. He had long, golden hair and peerlessly handsome looks. He looked like a high and mighty godly spirit, and he gave off an incredibly noble aura that mortals could not blaspheme. The Sun Elf followed the guidance of that power and waited for Zhao Fu. He had a trace of a confident smile on his face. He knew that Zhao Fu had defeated 9 geniuses, but Zhao Fu was still unable to defeat him, as he was an undefeatable existence. The 9 geniuses that Zhao Fu had defeated were also gathered here, waiting for the final battle to begin. The elephant person said somewhat nervously, "Do you think that person can defeat the Sun Elf?" The elephant person was the first genius to be defeated by Zhao Fu, and he had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful. The other 8 geniuses had all been defeated by him. Yuluawa said somewhat angrily, "I don't think it's possible. Outsiders don't know how powerful the Sun Elf is, but we know just how terrifying he is. I also want the Sun Elf to teach that bastard a lesson." The dwarf also laughed as he said, "I also think that the Sun Elf will win. He's one of the top 10 geniuses and is on our side. I don't want to hear that the Outlander race's top 10 geniuses have all been defeated by a single person, nor do I want to become someone else's stepping stone." The lion person's expression was somewhat serious as he said, "I hope so. That boy isn't simple either, but he's been hiding his power. Who knows what other terrifying power he's hiding?" Medusa said seriously, "I'm not sure who will win. Both of them are unfathomable, and only a battle will determine a victor." The ogre loudly laughed as he said, "I think the Sun Elf will definitely win. He's an unsurpassable existence within the Outlander race, and he won't lose to the geniuses of the other domains at all." Hubaime harumphed and said, "Even though I want to see that bastard get taught a lesson, I'm also looking forward to seeing if he can defeat the Sun Elf, who's an ultimate realm expert. If he really wins, I might give him a chance." It was not just the geniuses who were discussing this matter. Everyone else was also intensely debating who would win. Some people stood on the Sun Elf's side, believing that the Sun Elf had the Outlander Emperor Star and was an unparalleled existence. No matter how strong that person was, he would definitely lose to the Sun Elf and would not be able to defeat him. Some people stood on Zhao Fu's side, believing that Zhao Fu had a mysterious background and might be able to defeat the Sun Elf. After all, he had defeated Medusa, so it was not impossible for him to defeat the Sun Elf. The terrifying major figures on the viewing platforms were also paying great attention to this battle. This battle would be the most anticipated battle in recent years, and it might be the most terrifying and intense battle. As for who would win, most people supported the Sun Elf because they understood how terrifying the Emperor Star was. Even though Zhao Fu was mysterious, no one knew his true strength. Now, countless people were gathered here, and their gazes were all gathered here. They were all waiting for the battle to begin, and their hearts were filled with anticipation and excitement. A person wearing a black cloak and giving off an ordinary aura slowly arrived on the battlefield. Immediately, everyone fell silent and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Countless people's gazes fell on Zhao Fu's body, understanding that this battle was about to begin. The Sun Elf's golden eyes fell on Zhao Fu's body, and he said with a trace of confidence and pride, "You're very strong, but you're not a match for me. If your cultivation rises to the peak of the divine realm, perhaps you'll have a slight chance." Chapter 1699. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out, and facing the Sun Elf, Zhao Fu felt an unprecedented pressure. He did not hold back and immediately exploded out with all of his power. A 100-meter-wide black and blood-red aura flame burst forth from Zhao Fu's body, and a terrifying aura spread out, causing a massive gale to sweep out. The ground started to crack, and countless trees and grasses swayed. Boom! A trace of a condescending smile appeared on the Sun Elf's face as he drew the golden sword at his waist. A pure golden aura flame gave off a blinding golden light as it burst forth from the Sun Elf's body, and a terrifying power spread out. Swish! The two of them instantly disappeared and reappeared between the two of them. Zhao Fu's sword gave off a sharp sword light as he slashed towards the Sun Elf, while the Sun Elf's sword also gave off terrifying power as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the two swords clashed together, and a shock wave blasted out, sending out wild gales. The Sun Elf gave a condescending smile and vigorously swung his sword, forcing Zhao Fu back 5 or 6 steps. He then raised his sword and vigorously slashed out, causing a golden sword light to give off terrifying power as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu instantly sent large amounts of power into the Emperor Killing Sword, causing it to give off an intense sword light. He vigorously slashed out, and a terrifying black sword light containing sharp power slashed towards the Sun Elf. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the two sword lights collided, resulting in a massive explosion. Sword light shot everywhere, and a terrifying shockwave spread out. Zhao Fu was forced back a few steps, but the Sun Elf did not move at all. He continued to give a condescending smile as he raised his sword and sent terrifying power into it. The sword gave off a golden aura flame as he vigorously slashed out. Boom! An enormous golden sword light containing shocking power slashed towards Zhao Fu. It was incredibly terrifying, and it brought with it a powerful sword wind, leaving behind a 1 meter deep and 2 meters wide sword gash in the ground. Zhao Fu shouted, "Sword Master!" A massive and sharp sword intent exploded out from the Emperor Killing Sword, giving off terrifying power. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and a terrifying black sword light containing that sharp sword intent slashed forwards. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the two sword lights exploded, resulting in a shocking shockwave. A massive crater that was dozens of meters wide was blasted into the ground, causing rocks to fly everywhere. Zhao Fu once again retreated 10 or so steps before being able to resist the impact. Suddenly, the Sun Elf appeared in front of Zhao Fu and gave a trace of a cold smile as his sword gave off golden light and a terrifying power as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and raised his sword in front of him. Bang! With a dull thud, Zhao Fu was sent flying dozens of meters away. He fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Arg! Zhao Fu roared and crawled up from the ground. A massive black aura flame flowed out of his body, giving off a massive explosion. Zhao Fu raised his sword and sent a wave of power into it. Roar! 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 Massive dragons' roars containing terrifying power sounded out as 9 massive black dragons appeared behind Zhao Fu. A powerful dragon tail spread out, shaking the surroundings. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed down, and the 9 black dragons gave off terrifying power and shocking auras as they rushed towards the Sun Elf. No one could stop them. Roar! Facing the 9 black dragons, the Sun Elf gave a disdainful smile and raised his sword. A massive wave of power flowed into it, and a golden lizard-like dragon with a pair of golden wings gave off a massive roar. Boom! The Sun Elf vigorously slashed out, and the golden dragon flapped its wings, giving off a golden gale and a terrifying might as it rushed towards Zhao Fu. Bang! A massive explosion once again sounded out as the black dragon and golden dragon collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A powerful shockwave spread out, causing the ground to collapse. Countless trees were uprooted and rocks were blown away, and a 100-meter-wide crater was instantly formed. Suddenly, Zhao Fu appeared behind the Sun Elf and his sword gave off terrifying sword energy as he slashed towards the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf gave a confident smile as he turned and slashed out, giving off a shocking golden sword light. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu shouted, "Celestial mode, activate!" Boom! A massive rainbow-colored aura flame erupted around Zhao Fu's body as Zhao Fu's eyes gave off rainbow-colored light. A rainbow-colored rune circle appeared around Zhao Fu, and the Emperor Killing Sword in his hand also gave off a rainbow-colored aura flame, giving off a sword energy that seemed to be able to destroy all things. Sensing this terrifying power, the Sun Elf was given a big fright and could not react in time. Bang! A massive sound rang out as the Sun Elf was sent flying back 10 or so meters and crashed to the ground. He tasted a sweetness in his throat and a trace of blood leaked out of his mouth. The Sun Elf's expression was cold as he crawled up from the ground, and an even more intense and resplendent golden light, bringing with it a terrifying power, shot out from his body as he charged at Zhao Fu. A rainbow-colored aura flame ignited around Zhao Fu's body, and he gave off an otherworldly aura as he rushed towards the Sun Elf. Bang 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 bang, massive sounds rang out as the Sun Elf sent massive amounts of power into his sword, sending out terrifying sword lights that ferociously slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu also sent terrifying power into his sword, causing sharp sword lights to fly out and continuously slash towards the Sun Elf. The 2 sword lights continuously clashed, causing sword lights to shoot everywhere. Powerful gales spread out, and the ground gradually cracked before collapsing. The Sun Elf coldly harumphed, and an even more powerful golden light shined out from his body. He slashed out with even greater power, sending Zhao Fu flying back 10 or so meters. Zhao Fu stopped flying back, and the golden pupil in his left eye quickly spun as a terrifying aura exploded out. Clang, 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 rainbow-colored chains giving off incredibly ferocious power shot towards the Sun Elf from all directions. They were incredibly fast and there were many of them. There were at least 100,000 of them. Shing! The Sun Elf sent massive amounts of power into his sword, causing it to give off a dangerous aura. He vigorously slashed out, and a sword light containing terrifying power slashed out, instantly cutting the countless chains into pieces. Boom! Chapter 1700. The Sun Elf was given a big fright and immediately raised his sword to block. Bang! A massive sound rang out as the Sun Elf blocked Zhao Fu's attack. The ground beneath his feet was struck by a massive shockwave and cracked. Arg! Zhao Fu loudly roared and exploded out with even more power. The rainbow aura flame around his body became even brighter as he vigorously slashed towards the Sun Elf. Arg! The Sun Elf roared and activated his body's power. An even more terrifying power flowed out of his body as he vigorously slashed towards Zhao Fu. Bang! The two waves of power collided, resulting in two blinding lights. Both of them were affected by the collision and were both forced back 6 or 7 steps. Bang! 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 In the next second, the two of them gave off immense power as they rushed at each other. Their swords gave off terrifying power as they slashed towards each other, giving off massive sounds. Suddenly, a massive wave of power flowed into the black and blood-red sword pupil in Zhao Fu's left eye. The sword pupil gave off a faint light and a dangerous aura spread out. Shing, 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 a massive wave of black and blood-red sword chi flowed out, bringing with it a power that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth as it continuously flowed towards the Sun Elf. It was incredibly fast and incredibly sharp, and it was unstoppable. Sensing this incoming sword chi, the Sun Elf felt a chill in his heart and immediately released a golden defensive barrier around his body. Bang! The Sun Elf flew backwards and the defensive barrier shattered. The Sun Elf coughed up a mouthful of blood as a few parts of his body had been cut open by the sword chi. Blood flowed out, making the Sun Elf look quite wretched. Arg! The Sun Elf raised his head and roared as a terrifying power spread out from his body. The golden light around his body became even more intense and covered the surroundings as a golden elf image slowly appeared behind the Sun Elf, and a shocking aura spread out like a flood. Boom! The Sun Elf gave off a powerful aura as he rushed over and quickly arrived in front of Zhao Fu. His sword gave off terrifying power and gave off a ferocious sword wind as it slashed towards Zhao Fu, leaving behind a golden gash. The golden shadow behind him synchronized with the Sun Elf's movements and slashed out with a shadow sword. Zhao Fu sent large amounts of power into the Emperor Killing Sword, causing it to give off an intense sword light. A sharp sword chi storm spread out, and Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, sending out an enormous black sword light with shocking power. Bang! The two swords collided, resulting in a massive sound. A powerful shock wave spread out, causing the ground to collapse and countless rocks to fly everywhere. In the next moment, Zhao Fu's body was also sent flying. He flew back dozens of meters and smashed into a large rock, directly shattering it. Zhao Fu felt a pain in his chest and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Clang! Zhao Fu furiously crawled up from the ground and raised the Emperor Killing Sword. A rainbow-colored sword light shot into the sky and massive amounts of heaven and earth power madly gathered, forming an enormous whirlpool. A rainbow-colored sword formation giving off shocking sword intent appeared and gave off sharp power as it quickly spread out, causing the heavens and earth to seem to freeze. Sensing this terrifying power, the Sun Elf raised his sword and pointed it towards the sky. Boom! A massive golden aura flowed into the sky and condensed into an orb of light. Countless traces of heaven and earth power continuously gathered and flowed into the golden orb of light. The golden orb of light continuously became larger and gave off even more terrifying power. It was like a golden sun, and golden light shined in all directions, dyeing the sky golden. Zhao Fu's sword descended and the rainbow-colored magic formation gave off terrifying power as it slowly spun and gave off a faint light. An aura of destruction spread out like a flood. Boom! 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 Massive rainbow-colored sword lights containing world-destroying power slashed down from the sky, seeming to be unstoppable as they slashed towards the Sun Elf. Cracks appeared in the heavens and earth, making it seem incredibly difficult to deal with. Boom! The Sun Elf also slashed down, and the golden sun in the sky gave off destructive power and a massive aura as it flew towards Zhao Fu. The golden light seemed to cover everything. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as countless rays of blinding light spread out, causing the heavens and earth to turn white. A massive destructive power spread out, causing the ground, trees, grass, rocks, and everything else to shatter. A massive shockwave turned into a wild gale that blasted out countless trees and boulders. Countless trees were destroyed and boulders rolled, looking like a natural disaster. A massive crater that was tens of thousands of meters wide appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Seeing this scene, countless people felt quite startled and felt a sense of fear towards the battle between these two geniuses. With such terrifying power, it was no less than expected from a top-tier battle. Within the crater, a trace of blood leaked out of Zhao Fu and the Sun Elf's mouths as they climbed up from the ground. Boom! Boom! Two explosions simultaneously sounded out as the two of them once again exploded out with powerful auras as they charged at each other. Zhao Fu's sword gave off an incredibly sharp sword light as it slashed towards the Sun Elf, while the Sun Elf's sword also slashed out with terrifying power. The golden image behind him was still present, and it also slashed out. Shing! A metallic collision sound rang out as the two swords collided, resulting in countless sparks and a massive gale. Suddenly, Zhao Fu felt a massive wave of power rush at him, and he was forced back a few steps. The Sun Elf immediately slashed out, giving off a ferocious sword light as it slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu stood there and did not move at all, and his glassy eye gave off a beautiful glassy light. Pooh! That sword slashed Zhao Fu's body into a few pieces, causing blood to fly out and his corpse to fall to the ground. The Sun Elf did not dare to be careless. He did not believe that such a powerful person would be killed so easily. Suddenly, the Sun Elf sensed something and slashed backwards, sending out a golden sword light that slashed behind him. Pooh! A figure was cut in half at the waist by that sword light, causing blood to fly out and a corpse to fall to the ground. Seeing this scene, the Sun Elf sensed it and found that it had been affected by an illusion. An intense golden light spread out from the Sun Elf's body, causing him to break free from the strange illusion. Boom! At that moment, Zhao Fu appeared in front of him and his sword gave off terrifying power as it slashed towards the Sun Elf, drawing out a rainbow-colored gash. Bang! Chapter 1701. Arg! The Sun Elf furiously roared and exploded out with terrifying power. A golden blood-red flame erupted around the Sun Elf's body, and a golden gale spread out, causing the ground to continuously crack. The Sun Elf's injuries quickly recovered, and his wounds also quickly healed. As an elf, he had a great advantage in terms of life force. Boom! The golden image behind the Sun Elf raised its sword, and a massive golden sword light rushed into the sky, turning into a terrifying pillar of sword chi. Countless arcs of golden lightning exploded out, and a world-destroying power flooded out. Sensing this power, Zhao Fu felt quite startled and roared as he exploded out with his celestial mode's power. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a rainbow-colored aura flame rushed out, giving off a shocking aura as it covered the surrounding 10,000 meters. A terrifying power spread out, and the ground in the surrounding 10,000 meters instantly collapsed. Zhao Fu raised the Emperor-killing sword and countless rainbow-colored aura flames gathered and flowed into the Emperor-killing sword, causing it to burn with an intense rainbow-colored aura flame and give off world-destroying power. The surrounding space twisted as a massive storm of sword chi blew out. Boom! The Sun Elf raised his sword and heavily slashed down, sending out a massive golden sword light that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. It slashed towards Zhao Fu, causing long cracks to appear in space. Boom! Zhao Fu raised the Emperor-killing sword and vigorously slashed out, sending out a terrifying rainbow sword energy that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Everything in front of it was instantly reduced to dust, and nothing could stop it. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as the two massive sword lights clashed together, giving off unimaginable destructive power. A massive shockwave containing destructive power blasted out like a bolt of lightning. The ground, the mountains, the grass, the trees, and the rocks all shattered in that instant. The clouds in the sky seemed to have been swept away by an enormous power and instantly dissipated, revealing a cloudless blue sky. A 100,000-meter wide crater appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Countless people stared at this scene in shock as their bodies trembled uncontrollably. This was a battle between geniuses. It was simply too terrifying, too shocking. They were definitely lucky to be able to witness such a terrifying battle. The 9 geniuses who were watching the battle from the outside felt quite shocked. The intensity of the battle had long since surpassed their own battles. Bang! Bang! 2 explosions rang out and 2 piles of rocks exploded. Rocks flew everywhere and 2 people with chi flames appeared. Boom! There were also 6 gray dots in Zhao Fu's cross-shaped pupil in his right eye, and a massive wave of ghostly chi flowed out, turning into malicious ghosts that gave off shocking auras as they flooded towards the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf vigorously swung the sword in his hand, and a massive sword light slashed out, slashing the malicious ghosts in half and causing them to dissipate into ghostly chi. Zhao Fu used this opportunity to rush in front of the Sun Elf, and his sword gave off a sharp sword light as he slashed towards the Sun Elf's throat. The Sun Elf used his sword to block Zhao Fu's attack. Suddenly, the golden elf image behind the Sun Elf also swung its sword, sending out a terrifying sword light towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and unleashed a defensive barrier. Bang! The defensive barrier was shattered by the sword light, and Zhao Fu's body was sent flying back. He crashed dozens of meters away, and a gash appeared on his chest from which blood continuously flowed out. Swish! The Sun Elf appeared in front of Zhao Fu, and his sword gave off a terrifying sword light as it ferociously slashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu immediately dodged to the side, avoiding this attack. Bang! The sword light slammed into the ground, causing it to seem as if it had been hit by a massive force. A 10-meter-wide crater appeared, and Zhao Fu was forced back a few steps. Boom! The Sun Elf once again slashed out, and a massive golden sword light containing terrifying power and a ferocious sword wind flew towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu hurriedly blocked with his sword, but he was still sent flying by the massive golden sword light. He heavily crashed 100 meters away and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Arg! Zhao Fu looked furious as he gave a massive roar, and a terrifying power spread out. An enormous black aura flame appeared around his body, and he rushed into the sky with terrifying power, causing a ferocious black gale to spread out. A might that surpassed everything, one that reigned above emperors, and all creatures in the world had to submit spread out. The ground in the surroundings sank, and countless creatures felt terror from their bloodlines. The surroundings fell into a deathly silence. The countless people in the surroundings sensed this might that reigned above emperors, and they looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They felt incredibly nervous, and their bodies slightly trembled. It's a divine bloodline. Suddenly, a shocked and nervous voice sounded out. The surroundings were sent into an uproar. No one had expected that person to have the legendary divine bloodline. From that terrifying power, it was definitely not an ordinary divine bloodline. At that moment, whether it was the 9 geniuses or the major figures on the viewing platforms, they all looked slightly shocked. They understood why Zhao Fu had been wearing a cloak to hide his identity. It turned out that he had a divine bloodline. Before, Zhao Fu had been hiding his aura, so no one had discovered him. Now, Zhao Fu did not have to worry about anything and unleashed his divine bloodline's power. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu gripped the emperor-killing sword with both hands and pointed it downward. Massive amounts of power continuously flowed into it, and the emperor-killing sword gave off traces of an incredibly terrifying aura that seemed to be able to destroy everything. Zhao Fu gripped the emperor-killing sword with both hands and vigorously stabbed it into the ground as he shouted, "Ghost Lord! World-conquering!" Boom! A massive black aura flooded out from the ground, instantly covering hundreds of thousands of meters of ground. black ghost soldiers wearing armor and holding all sorts of weapons appeared. There were simply too many of them to count, and they gave off a world-conquering aura. Within the underworld's secret realm, Zhao Fu had absorbed all of the ghost soldiers in a secret realm into the Ghost Lord sword. This was the first time Zhao Fu had used it. Chapter 1702. Boom. A massive explosion once again sounded out as a blinding light shot out from the Sun Elf's body. The golden elf image behind him fused into the Sun Elf's body, causing the Sun Elf to look like a sun and give off boundless golden light. The Sun Elf gripped his sword with both hands and pointed it downwards, sending massive amounts of power into the sword. The golden sword gave off an intense golden light, causing it to look like a golden sword of light, and it gave off an extremely terrifying power. Boom! The Sun Elf gripped the sword with both hands and stabbed it into the ground. A powerful golden light flowed into the ground as a massive ancient golden tree, giving off the aura of countless worlds, appeared behind the Sun Elf. This ancient tree was hundreds of thousands of meters tall, and its canopy covered the sky. Every leaf and branch gave off terrifying power, and the ancient tree gave off boundless golden light, dyeing the heavens and earth golden. The world seemed to be split in half. One half was black and gave off boundless black aura, while the other half was golden and gave off boundless golden light. The two sides intensely clashed, causing people to feel incredibly shocked. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu raised a hand and pressed it down towards the Sun Elf. The countless black ghost soldiers behind him gave off a world-conquering aura as they rushed towards the Sun Elf, seeming as if they wanted to destroy everything. Boom! The Sun Elf raised a hand and pointed out, causing the ancient golden tree to explode out with an intense golden light. Everything in the surroundings collapsed under the terrifying golden light, seeming to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as the two extremely terrifying powers clashed together, resulting in a massive explosion. It was like an energy barrier that spread out, and everything within it was reduced to nothingness. The ground continuously trembled as terrifying auras continuously spread out like floodwaters. A massive gale blew out, causing countless trees to sway and boulders to roll. Even the people on the outside were affected and had to use defensive barriers to defend. After everything settled, a crater that was hundreds of thousands of meters wide appeared in the ground. Zhao Fu stood up, covered with blood, while the Sun Elf was nowhere to be seen. Countless people looked at the scene before them in shock. They could not help but wonder, did that mysterious saint win? Boom! A shocking explosion once again sounded out as countless rays of azure starlight appeared in the sky, and an incredibly powerful might descended. The heavens and earth seemed to tremble in fear as a chaotic and powerful aura flooded the world. A massive azure star giving off an azure light and giving off a massive might slowly descended from the sky, causing the ground to sink. The Emperor's star has descended. Countless people looked at the green star in the sky in shock. That was the Outlander race's supreme Emperor's star, the Emperor's star of all races. Bang! Countless rocks flew out, and a blood-red Sun Elf appeared. His body was covered with green starlight, and he gave off an extremely terrifying aura. The Sun Elf raised a hand and pressed it down on Zhao Fu. Boom! The Outlander Emperor's star exploded out with a terrifying aura and gave off intense starlight, turning into a massive pillar of starlight that gave off world-destroying power as it landed on Zhao Fu's body. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as if a meteor had smashed into the ground. A terrifying shockwave spread out, causing the ground and the surrounding tens of thousands of meters to collapse. A massive shockwave blasted out, and countless rocks and sand flew everywhere. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. Could that holy sun still have the strength to fight after receiving such a terrifying attack? The Sun Elf had used the Supreme Emperor Star. Could that mysterious holy sun still be a match for him? Boom! A heaven-toppling ghostly chi flooded out from the ground, inundating everything. The sky became gray and ghostly chi filled the surroundings. The world seemed to be filled with an eerie coldness, as if it was a ghost realm. A terrifying figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes. A terrifying ghostly flame appeared around his body, and he was half naked. He had long, gray-white hair, and his muscles bulged as violet scales grew out of them. His fingernails grew long and gave off cold lights as a pair of black demon horns grew out of Zhao Fu's head. His forehead split open as a pale white vertical eye appeared, and his mouth became filled with countless fangs as a pair of gray-black wings grew out of his back. His body gave off an ancient, savage, evil, and eerie aura, and the space around him could not withstand his power and continuously twisted. The people in the surroundings once again looked shocked as they looked at that figure. They had never thought that this person would madly fuse the 6 paths demon images into his body. This was simply too terrifying. The Sun Elf's expression was serious as he sensed Zhao Fu's terrifying ghostly power. He felt quite shocked and raised a hand towards the Outlander Emperor star in the sky. Arg! The Sun Elf roared and unleashed all of his power. A terrifying aura exploded out from his body as his body gave off blinding golden light. The ground was unable to withstand that power and continuously collapsed. The Sun Elf gave off boundless golden light as his body slowly rose up and seemed to fuse into the Supreme Emperor star. The green Outlander Emperor star seemed to be dyed gold as boundless heaven and earth power flowed into it. An extremely terrifying power spread out from the Emperor star, causing space to continuously collapse as if it was going to destroy the heavens and earth. Countless people felt that power, and they felt as if they had fallen into an icy cavern. Their bodies and souls continuously trembled. Boom! 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 The Golden Emperor star exploded out with countless rays of golden light, each containing terrifying power as they shot towards Zhao Fu. It was as if the entire sky had been pierced by the golden light, creating a shocking scene. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhao Fu. Facing the countless rays of light, Zhao Fu vigorously pressed against the ground, and a formless energy seeped into the ground. Boom! A massive wave of ghostly chi erupted out of the ground, giving off a terrifying aura as it rushed into the sky, forming a 10,000-meter-wide pillar of ghostly chi that gave off ferocious and eerie winds. Countless traces of ghostly chi spread throughout the heavens and earth, seeming to cover the entire world, and giving off an extremely cold and eerie aura. Arg! The ghostly chi turned into malicious ghosts, and there were countless of them. They gave off terrifying howls that shook the surroundings, making the entire world seem like a world of malicious ghosts. Clang, 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 clang. However, this was not the end. The malicious ghosts turned into ghostly weapons that looked different. There were sabers, swords, spears, axes, lances, and other weapons. All of them gave off cold lights and gave off an aura of killing. Boom! 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 Under Zhao Fu's control, the dense ghostly soldiers all aimed at the Golden Emperor star in the sky and gave off powerful ghostly power as they shot towards the sky, seeming to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. Bang! Chapter 1703. Everything gradually calmed down and the dust settled. A 1,000,000-meter-wide crater had appeared in the ground, and the ground around the crater had been flattened. A layer of the ground had been lifted up, and there were broken rocks and wood everywhere. Outside, trees had been destroyed, rocks were everywhere, and grass was everywhere. The surroundings were deathly silent, as if everything had died. Large winds blew, seeming to cry out in sorrow at the devastation that had just occurred. The people on the outskirts had also been greatly affected, and they were covered with dust and looked quite wretched. Countless people looked at the terrifying scene in front of them in shock, and their bodies felt icy cold as they trembled. This was not something that could be done by a human, it was incredibly terrifying. The starlight that the Emperor's star gave off was not as intense as before, and it was now much dimmer. No one could see any traces of the two people, and no one was sure just who had won. The people on the outskirts and viewing platforms felt incredibly nervous as they stared at the crater, waiting for the situation to change. Bang! A massive sound rang out as rocks flew everywhere, and a terrifying figure appeared. There was a ghostly flame around his body, and he gave off an incredibly cold and eerie aura. It was Zhao Fu. Blood leaked out of Zhao Fu's lips, and there were a few wounds on his body. However, they were not very big, and there was some gray blood flowing out. Boom! The dim Emperor star in the sky once again exploded out with a powerful aura, giving off bright starlight, and the Sun Elf's figure appeared at the center of the Emperor's star. A trace of blood leaked out of the Sun Elf's lips, and there were a few wounds on his body. However, he gave off an intense golden light and a terrifying might. The battle was not over yet. Boom! Zhao Fu grabbed at the air and the Emperor Killing Sword appeared in his hand. A massive ghostly flame fused into it, causing the Emperor Killing Sword to burn with ghostly flames. A powerful ghostly power exploded out, and Zhao Fu rushed at the Sun Elf. Boom! The Sun Elf's expression was cold as he vigorously grabbed out, and a golden sword appeared in his hand. The Emperor's star gave off boundless starlight power, which flowed into the Sun Elf's body, causing his body to shine with an intense azure light. With this massive Emperor's star power, the Sun Elf rushed at Zhao Fu. Bang! Zhao Fu's sword gave off a terrifying gray sword light that gave off an incredibly cold and eerie power and a massive amount of ghostly chi as it slashed towards the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf slashed out, and an azure sword light containing destructive power and countless rays of azure light slashed towards Zhao Fu. The two swords gave off terrifying power as they collided, resulting in a massive shockwave that blasted out like a wild gale. The two of them were sent flying back several hundred meters. However, in the next moment, the two of them clashed again, leaving powerful streams of light behind them. Bang bang bang, massive sounds rang out as Zhao Fu's sword gave off terrifying sword lights as he slashed towards the Sun Elf. The Sun Elf's sword continuously gave off azure sword lights as it ferociously slashed towards Zhao Fu. The two sword lights continuously clashed, causing sword light to shoot everywhere and sending out massive gales. The heavens and earth dimmed and the sun and moon dimmed. The crowd watched the battle between the two of them in shock. This was a battle between top-notch geniuses. Moreover, they did not hold back at all and fought with all their might. The Sun Elf directly summoned the Supreme Emperor Star and obtained boundless Emperor Star power. He could change the heavens and earth, and his power surpassed ordinary people's imaginations. His opponent was not simple either. He had a divine bloodline and had fused the Six Paths demon images into his body. He had reincarnation path power and terrifying ghostly power that could easily destroy anything. Arg! Zhao Fu roared and a terrifying wave of reincarnation path power entered the Emperor Killing Sword. 6 traces of ghostly chi flowed out and wrapped around the Emperor Killing Sword. An extremely terrifying ghostly power spread out, and Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out. A sword energy containing destructive power slashed towards the Sun Elf. Arg! The Sun Elf raised the sword in his hand and loudly roared as the Emperor Star behind him gave off a brilliant starlight. A massive wave of Emperor Star power flowed into the sword, causing it to give off boundless green sword light that shined in all directions. The Sun Elf vigorously slashed out, sending out a shocking green sword light. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the two swords collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A terrifying explosive force blasted out, bringing with it a powerful gale. Bang! Zhao Fu's body quickly crashed to the ground like a meteor. A shock wave blasted out, causing the ground in the surrounding hundreds of meters to crack. The Sun Elf was forced back dozens of meters. Boom! Zhao Fu crawled up from the ground and pressed his hand against the ground. A massive wave of ghostly chi exploded out, forming 1,000 devils that were hundreds of meters tall. They were covered with muscles and had savage-looking faces, and they gave off powerful auras. Roar, roar, roar. The 1,000 demons raised their heads and roared, exploding out with powerful ghostly power. They turned into powerful rays of light that shook the space around them as they rushed towards the sun elf in the sky. Facing the 1,000 devils giving off terrifying auras, the sun elf raised a hand and a massive wave of power gathered in his palm. Boom! The supreme emperor star behind the sun elf exploded out with a powerful aura and gave off boundless green starlight. The starlight formed 100-meter-long green swords of light that floated behind the sun elf, giving off a massive sword aura. The sun elf waved his hand. Boom! Boom! The 1,000 green swords of light gave off terrifying sword energy as they shot out incredibly quickly. They left behind green rays of light and gave off shocking sounds. Bang! 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 Explosions sounded out as the azure swords of light gave off terrifying power and pierced through the chests of the evil spirits. The evil spirits exploded and turned into countless traces of ghostly chi that dissipated. Roar! A dragon's roar suddenly sounded out as Zhao Fu appeared behind the sun elf. He raised the emperor-killing sword and gave off an intense sword light as a ghost dragon giving off massive ghostly chi appeared behind him. Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, and the ghost dragon gave off terrifying power and a powerful aura as it rushed towards the sun elf. Bang! The sun elf was startled and blocked with his sword in front of him, releasing a green defensive barrier. The ghost dragon slammed into the barrier with immense power, causing it to shatter. The sun elf flew back and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Chapter 1704. The sun elf gave off a trace of anger as he raised his sword. The supreme emperor star behind him gave off intense green starlight that flowed into the sun elf's body, and the sword gave off an intense green sword light. The sun elf vigorously slashed out, and a massive green arc of light containing shocking power instantly slashed out. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the two massive powers collided, resulting in a massive explosion. A massive gale was created as sword light and ghostly chi flew everywhere. Zhao Fu rushed in front of the sun elf and his sword burned with a powerful ghostly flame as he slashed towards the sun elf. Shing! The sun elf blocked with his sword, blocking Zhao Fu's sword. The sound of metal clashing could be heard as sparks flew everywhere. Zhao Fu roared as a massive ghostly flame flowed out of his body, and a massive wave of power exploded out. Zhao Fu gripped his sword and pressed down towards the sun elf. The sun elf's expression was cold as he slowly lowered his sword, looking as if he was unable to defend against Zhao Fu's immense power. However, in the next moment, the sun elf also roared, and the emperor star behind him once again gave off intense starlight. Boundless emperor star power flowed into the sun elf's body, and a terrifying power flowed out from his body. The sun elf vigorously pushed out, sending Zhao Fu flying back. Boom! The sun elf raised his sword, and the supreme emperor star behind him exploded out with a massive aura, giving off a brilliant green light as he vigorously slashed out. Boom! The starlight from the supreme emperor star formed a massive green ray of light that gave off destructive power and a terrifying aura as it shot towards Zhao Fu, resulting in a massive explosion. Bang! Zhao Fu hurriedly exploded out with powerful ghostly chi, and a 6 paths defensive barrier appeared around him. The massive green ray of light slammed against the barrier with shocking power, and Zhao Fu's body quickly crashed into the ground, smashing open a large crater. Arg! The sun elf once again roared, and the supreme emperor star flashed with brilliant starlight, forming countless green orbs of light that gave off immense destructive power as they shot towards Zhao Fu like a meteor shower. Bang! 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 Massive sounds rang out as the azure orbs of light landed on the ground and exploded. Destructive power rippled out, causing the ground to crumble and rocks to fly everywhere. Dust and stones rose into the air. After everything settled, A 10,000-meter wide crater had appeared, and there were countless smaller craters within it. Everyone looked at the Sun Elf in shock. He was simply too powerful. With the Supreme Emperor Star behind him and boundless Emperor Star power flowing into him, he was simply invincible. Even though that person was powerful, facing the Sun Elf who had of Emperor Star power, of course he would lose. Of a person, it was impossible to defeat of a peerless genius with an Emperor Star. However, that person was truly powerful to be able to force the Sun Elf to explode out with such terrifying power. Ordinary people would not be able to do such a thing. At the center of the crater, Zhao Fu was covered with blood as he staggered to his feet. His eyes were filled with fury as he roared towards the sky, shaking the 9 heavens and piercing through the underworld. Celestial mode. Activate. Boom. A shocking explosion sounded out as if something had been shattered. A world-destroying power flowed out from Zhao Fu's body and instantly spread out, causing the ground to be reduced to dust. A sky-toppling ghostly flame erupted around Zhao Fu's body, and massive eerie winds containing destructive power spread out. Grass was blown away, countless trees were uprooted, and countless rocks were sent flying. The temperature of the entire world quickly fell, and it became bone-chillingly cold. The countless people in this world could not help but tremble in fear and look towards Zhao Fu's direction. It was as if this place was covered by a massive layer of dark clouds. Zhao Fu stood in the air, and below him was a massive crater that was tens of thousands of meters wide and 1,000 meters deep. The left side of Zhao Fu's face became crimson red, making him look incredibly savage like a demon. The pale white eyeball on his forehead became rainbow-colored, and at the same time, a thin hole appeared in Zhao Fu's eye sockets, giving off an unimaginably terrifying power. 9 gray rune circles floated out with Zhao Fu at the center, each larger than the last, and they were 30 centimeters apart. The aura that Zhao Fu gave off was like that of a true ghost celestial. The heavens and earth could not withstand it, and they continuously collapsed, twisted, and collapsed. The people on the viewing platforms and in the surroundings could not help but look terrified as they looked at Zhao Fu in the air. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would have such terrifying power. Was he still human? He was like a ghost celestial. The Sun Elf's expression was quite unsightly as he felt incredibly shocked. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would have such terrifying power. Arg! The Sun Elf roared and raised a hand. The Supreme Emperor Star behind him exploded out with countless rays of green starlight, forming rays of green light that gave off immense power as they shot towards Zhao Fu. The sky seemed to be pierced through. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up. Facing the incoming rays of green light, Zhao Fu's expression was cold and emotionless as he slowly raised a hand and aimed at the incoming rays of green light. Time and space seemed to freeze as the countless rays of green light froze in the air. Zhao Fu vigorously grabbed at the air, and the rays of green light turned into countless motes of light and dissipated. It was as if there was a rain of green light, creating a beautiful scene. Arg! The Sun Elf once again roared and unleashed all of his power from the Supreme Emperor Star. The Supreme Emperor Star once again exploded out with boundless green light, making it look like a green sun that illuminated the entire heavens and earth. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the countless rays of green light formed a massive pillar of green light that gave off world-destroying power as it shot towards Zhao Fu, tearing out countless spatial cracks. Zhao Fu was expressionless as he raised a hand towards the incoming pillar of green light. A massive wave of ghostly power gathered in his palm, causing it to give off traces of terrifying ghostly qi. The 9 rings of runes around him came in front of Zhao Fu, which was in front of his palm. They gave off intense gray light and formed a circular shield. Bang! The terrifying pillar of green light slammed against the circular shield with destructive power, resulting in a massive explosion. Countless rays of green light shot out in all directions, causing wild gales to blow. The pillar of green light lasted for a minute or so, and the 9 rings of runes continuously spun, turning all of the power into nothingness. In the end, the pillar of green light gradually became smaller and disappeared, leaving behind a terrifying aura of destruction. Chapter 1705. The round shield dissipated and the 9 circles of runes returned to Zhao Fu's side. Zhao Fu grabbed at the Sun Elf, and a massive wave of ghostly energy flowed out. Clang, 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 massive sounds of chains rang out throughout the sky as massive gray chains shot up from the ground, bringing with them terrifying and eerie power as they shot into the sky. There were many of them, and there were at least millions of them, seeming to be able to lock down the heavens and earth. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the countless chains tightly bound up the massive Supreme Emperor Star in the sky. The Supreme Emperor Star gave off terrifying power and continuously struggled. It was a Supreme Emperor Star, so how could it accept being bound? As such, it looked quite furious. The Sun Elf was also bound up. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be able to forcefully suppress that terrifying Supreme Emperor Star. He really was comparable to a ghost celestial. The 9 geniuses also looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They had always felt that Zhao Fu was hiding his power, and now that they had personally witnessed Zhao Fu's power, their hearts trembled. It was simply too terrifying. Facing the power that Zhao Fu had displayed, the 9 geniuses felt that they were inferior. Even the second-ranked Medusa accepted this reality and did not feel unconvinced at all. Looking at the Supreme Emperor Star and Sun Elf bound up by countless chains, everyone could not help but wonder, is it over just like that? Arg! A massive roar sounded out throughout the sky as the Sun Elf's body gave off boundless blood-red golden light, and an extremely terrifying power exploded out. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the massive Supreme Emperor Star exploded out with a terrifying aura. A massive green aura flame appeared around it, giving off unimaginable power. The countless chains binding it shattered, and the Supreme Emperor Star gave off a massive green aura flame, giving off an aura that seemed to be able to suppress the heavens and earth as it stood in the sky. The countless chains binding the Sun Elf were all broken, and the Sun Elf's body gave off an intense light. Its expression was cold as it looked at Zhao Fu and turned into a ray of light as it flew into the Supreme Emperor Star. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the Supreme Emperor Star exploded out with terrifying power, giving off boundless green light that covered the entire heavens and earth. Space continuously shattered as a massive aura flame flowed out. The cyan aura flame split into 2, one continuously rising, while the other continuously falling. The upper aura flame turned into the upper body of an elf, while the lower aura flame turned into the lower body of an elf. A massive aura flame spirit appeared, giving off a terrifying aura. The Azure Supreme Emperor Star was at the center of the aura flame giant's chest. When this aura flame appeared, it created a terrifying storm. The ground was lifted up layer by layer, and countless trees were destroyed. Many boulders shattered, and the sky became azure. Clouds swirled, and the sun and moon lost their light. That extremely terrifying aura spread out like a tide, easily sweeping through the heavens and earth, pulling countless people into a state of fear. Boom! As soon as the azure aura flame giant was formed, it looked at Zhao Fu with a sovereign's gaze. It gripped its fist and gave off terrifying power as it punched towards Zhao Fu, bringing with it an intense gale. Facing this punch, Zhao Fu did not feel any fear and also gripped a fist. A massive wave of ghostly power gathered in his fist, causing it to give off traces of ghostly chi as he punched out with destructive power. Boom! The 2 completely disproportionate fists gave off terrifying power as they clashed together, resulting in a massive explosion. A ferocious gale swept out in all directions, destroying everything. The Azure Aura Flame Giant was forced back a few steps, but Zhao Fu did not move at all. The massive impact was dissipated by the 9 gray runes around him. Roar! The azure aura flame giant furiously roared as it gripped its fists and continuously punched out. Terrifying fist energies containing destructive power blasted out, bringing with them massive gales that seemed to be unstoppable. Facing the incoming fist energies, Zhao Fu's expression was cold and he once again stretched out a hand. A massive wave of ghostly power gathered in his palm, and the 9 gray runes around him once again came before Zhao Fu's palm. They gave off intense gray light and formed a massive round shield. Bang! 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 The massive fist energies slammed into the round shield, resulting in massive sounds and sending out ferocious gales. However, the round shield did not budge at all, and the 9 runes slowly spun, dispelling the massive power. The azure aura flame giant did not seem to believe this and punched out even more ferociously, bringing with it even more destructive power as it slammed into the round shield. Bang! 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 Massive sounds rang out as gales spread out, and the round shield slightly trembled. The 9 runes quickly spun, dispelling the terrifying power. Roar! The azure aura flame giant raised its head and gave a massive roar, causing the entire sky to tremble. A heaven-toppling aura flowed out of its body as it raised its hands and vigorously grabbed at the air. A massive azure aura flame sword appeared in its hands, and it gave off immense power as it vigorously slashed out. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as if the heavens and earth had been split in half. A massive sword energy that seemed to be able to destroy everything slashed out like lightning, destroying the ground, space, rocks, plants, and everything else. Bang! The terrifying sword energy split the round shield in half, and Zhao Fu's body was sent flying back and heavily smashed into the ground, opening up a massive crater. A sword gash that was tens of thousands of meters wide and over 1,000 meters deep appeared on the ground, and it gave off traces of destructive power, making people feel incredibly terrified. Zhao Fu coughed up a large mouthful of blood and crawled up from the ground. The azure aura flame giant held the azure aura flame sword and strode towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's expression was cold as he raised a hand, and a massive wave of ghostly energy flowed out of his palm, forming 6 egg-sized gray orbs of light that floated around his palm. Zhao Fu aimed at the azure aura flame giant and vigorously pressed down, causing a massive wave of power to flow out. Boom! 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 6 massive explosions sounded out as 6 stone doors giving off ancient, cold, and powerful auras appeared around the azure aura flame giant. They were tens of thousands of meters tall and were carved with countless images of ghosts and monsters. They gave off an incredibly powerful might and caused the heavens and earth to fall silent. The stone doors slowly opened as 6 massive ghostly hands giving off terrifying power and a bone-chilling aura stretched out. They grabbed the azure aura flame giant's hands, legs, body, and head and vigorously pulled them. Arg! Chapter 1706. He won. Countless people stared at this scene with wide eyes. The sun elf crashed to the ground and fainted, unable to retaliate at all. As the person with the most points, he fell to second place, and Zhao Fu took first place. Suddenly, regardless of whether it was in the periphery or on the grandstand, the voices were boiling and reverberating in all directions. Even people far away could hear it and feel the excitement and liveliness here. That person really won. So terrifying. Even I feel so excited. That person is invincible and super powerful. I've never admired a person so much in my life. He defeated the Outlander race's top 10 geniuses by himself. Today, he's destined to ascend to the top and become famous in the Outlander domain. Arg, he's too powerful. I worship him so much. I like him so much. He was able to defeat the Sun Elf with the full power of the Emperor Star, and he relied on his own strength to defeat the Sun Elf without any tricks at all. Even though I didn't like this person at first, I can't help but say that I've been won over by his charisma. He's truly a powerful person. It's the first time I've seen someone defeat someone with a Supreme Emperor star without any stars. I have nothing to say, that person is truly powerful." Countless people cried out excitedly, looking incredibly shocked. Even the powerful major figures looked incredibly shocked. It could be seen just how big of a commotion Zhao Fu had caused. The 9 geniuses stared at this scene in shock. The Outlander race's most powerful expert, someone who had reached the pinnacle of the Outlander race, had been defeated today. What's more, he had been defeated with overwhelming power. Now that the Sun Elf had lost, everyone accepted it wholeheartedly and did not have any objections. The elephant person felt a trace of nervousness as he said, "I never thought that person would actually win. His true strength is so terrifying. Just what sort of monster were we fighting against back then?" Yuluawa also said in shock, "That's right. I never thought that that fellow would find it so difficult to defeat a Supreme Emperor star. If it was me, I would have died without a trace." The Ogre Demon said in agreement, "If the Sun Elf did not use the Supreme Emperor star, we would have been able to fight. However, once he used the Supreme Emperor star, we would have lost without a doubt. After all, that's the Outlander race's Supreme Emperor star, and there are only a few of them in the entire Outlander race." The Lion person said seriously, "He's a peerless expert and has won my respect and admiration. He's the first person I've admired so much." Hubaime lightly harumphed, "That fellow is actually so terrifying, there's nothing I can't accept anymore. I'm afraid even a few geniuses working together would not be able to defeat him. I'll give him a chance later." The Orc person said excitedly, "It's the first time I've seen such a terrifying battle. Both sides are simply too powerful. Even though the elf was defeated, he deserved respect." The dwarf sighed. "His power has already made me feel a sense of powerlessness and defeat. I thought that with Eternal Protector, I would be able to become number 1, but after seeing their power, I realize how laughable that was." Medusa did not say anything and looked at Zhao Fu. Back when Zhao Fu had defeated her, she had felt a trace of dissatisfaction because she had not used her most powerful attack, the petrification ability. However, from the power that Zhao Fu had displayed, even if she used her ability, she would definitely lose. However, she could not help but feel a trace of admiration towards Zhao Fu for defeating the Sun Elf, who had an Emperor star. Defeating the Sun Elf had been her goal for a long time, and now, Zhao Fu had accomplished it first. The dragon person said seriously, "What I'm most curious about is his identity. Not only can he control the 6 paths demon images, but he also has a divine bloodline. If he's such a terrifying person, how come I've never heard of him before?" Hearing his words, everyone felt quite startled. They were also quite curious about this. Just who was Zhao Fu? Why did he have such terrifying power and abilities? The elephant person thought about it before saying seriously, "He's most likely someone from a holy empire. Only people from holy empires have divine bloodlines, which is why even though he's so powerful, we've never heard of him before." The ogre demon nodded in agreement, saying, "Most likely only people from holy empires have such terrifying power. Ordinary people would not be able to do such a thing." Yuluawa felt a trace of confusion as she said, "Since he's from a holy empire, he most likely has an incredibly terrifying Emperor star. If he used his Emperor star, perhaps it would not be so difficult. However, he doesn't have such an Emperor star. Could it be that this isn't his true strength?" The orc person felt quite shocked and gulped as he said, "Don't try to scare people. If this isn't his true strength, then isn't his strength a bit too terrifying?" Medusa said seriously, "If he has a fate star, he will indeed be at his strongest. However, if the opponent's Emperor star is of a much higher grade than yours, you will be completely suppressed, so it will be quite disadvantageous for you. However, as a holy sun with such terrifying power, his Emperor star should not be much weaker than a Supreme Emperor star. Perhaps he really hasn't used his full power yet. Now that the second-ranked Medusa had said such a thing, everyone felt quite shocked and looked at Zhao Fu. They did not know that Zhao Fu was the person who had 5 Emperor stars, which had caused such a commotion before. The Dragon Princess and the others looked at Zhao Fu in delight and worship. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so terrifying. He had defeated the strongest expert of the Outlander race. He was now the strongest expert, a supreme existence, and someone everyone looked up to. The Dragon Princess laughed as she said, "Husband is simply too powerful. Adding on that divine bloodline, even I feel that I'm not worthy of him. I feel quite fortunate that I'm the woman of such a powerful person." The elf princess lightly laughed as she said, "I knew that husband was no ordinary person. I always felt that he would become the most powerful person in the world in the future, and the entire heaven-awakened world would be shocked by him and look up to him." Now, the people from the 2 empires were all incredibly delighted. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful to be able to defeat even the Sun Elf, who was ranked first on the Heaven's Pride rankings. Moreover, they could see that Zhao Fu and the 2 princesses were incredibly close, and their relationship was definitely confirmed. Chapter 1707. That was a legendary holy empire, and the benefits it would bring them were unimaginable. They wanted to marry their princesses over, and they had long since cast aside their thoughts of killing Zhao Fu. Yuluowa and Hu Baimei's empire also wanted to marry them over. At first, they had admired Zhao Fu and felt that Zhao Fu had great potential. However, contrary to their expectations, not only did Zhao Fu have a divine bloodline, but he had also defeated the Sun Elf. In the future, Zhao Fu's accomplishments would definitely surpass the Sun Elf's, causing them to value Zhao Fu even more. Putting aside strength, just Zhao Fu's divine bloodline was enough for them to marry their princesses over. After all, a divine bloodline was a terrifying bloodline that reigned above a sovereign bloodline. Even the Outlander race's most powerful empire's bloodline was limited to the peak of the imperial bloodline. It could be seen just how rare and precious a divine bloodline was. In fact, Medusa's empire was quite interested in Zhao Fu and wanted to marry Medusa to Zhao Fu. The academy's teachers looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would have such a powerful faction to be able to defeat the Sun Elf. The elegant-looking woman lightly laughed as she said, "He's quite terrifying. He exploded out with such terrifying power at the end. He's comparable to a ghost immortal, and even the Sun Elf was unable to force him to use all of his power. I feel that this ghost immortal state has even more power that he has not used yet. It's a pity that the Sun Elf was defeated, or else an even more intense battle would have erupted. When that time comes, we'll be able to see just how terrifying this state's power is." The chubby bear race elder happily laughed as he said, "I knew that this boy would surpass our expectations. My intuition was right. It's a pity that he's not from our Outlander race, and is most likely from the Death race. I really envy them for having such a peerless genius." The serious-looking middle-aged man sighed as he replied, "That's right. For a race to have such a terrifying existence, it will greatly affect the entire race, and it can even increase the race's overall power and might. I admit that I underestimated him once again. Before, I also had some prejudice against him. He used his own strength to prove himself. It was my poor judgment to discover that he was so extraordinary. Now I have to re-evaluate him." The gnome elder's expression was quite unsightly as he nodded and said, "My judgment was quite poor. Before, I said that he would not be able to defeat the Sun Elf, but now, he has used this result to tell me that he has the ability to do so. I once again underestimated him. However, he's still quite monstrous to be able to wield such terrifying power. Even the Sun Elf, who unleashed his full Emperor Star's power, was defeated by him. It's not that the Sun Elf is weak, but that he's too powerful." Also, the top 10 geniuses of the outsider race were defeated by a ghost race. This is not a good thing for the entire outsider race. The entire outsider race has lost face, and if others were to talk about it, they would feel ashamed as well. The fox raceman said, "There's no need to say too much. After all, it's just that we're not as strong as him. It's not that our top 10 geniuses are weak. Even if it was any other race, the result would be the same. It's just that that person is too powerful. Also, that person has undoubtedly taken first place in this examination. In the future, he'll be a student of Outlander 10 College, so we can't have any prejudice against him. Having such a terrifying student is a great blessing for Outlander 10 College." The bear race elder sighed as he said, "Now that he has defeated the Sun Elf, it's likely that he'll be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword. It's a pity that he's from the Death race, and I don't know if the Sun Elf will be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword after being defeated." The serious-looking middle-aged man said worriedly, "I'm also worried about this. If the Sun Elf had not been defeated by that person, perhaps it would have been possible. However, he lost at that person's hands and suffered a great loss of fate, making it even more difficult for him to be acknowledged." The gnome elder nodded. "I don't know who will be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword, and I'm not very confident that the prophecy will come true." The fox raceman said with a serious expression, "I hope that the prophecy will come true and that someone will inherit the will of the first King of Kings and lead our Outlander race to glory, becoming the greatest race in the world." The elegant-looking woman laughed. "Don't be so lacking in confidence. Isn't there someone who has caused the 23 statues to give off 10-colored light who hasn't appeared yet? Moreover, there are many terrifying figures hidden among them. It's possible that someone will be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword and become the King of Kings." Hearing this, everyone's expressions became better and they turned their gazes back to the battlefield. Zhao Fu looked at the Sun Elf on the ground and received the system announcement in his mind. Zhao Fu did not do anything and turned into a ray of light and disappeared over the horizon. The Dragon Princess and the others also returned to where they had been. After returning, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to recover. This time, Zhao Fu's injuries were quite severe and were not as simple as they seemed. After Zhao Fu had exited the ghost-immortal state, he had powerlessly crashed to the ground and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. He got up with great difficulty and slowly recovered from his injuries. Because Zhao Fu had the divine bloodline, his recovery speed was quite fast, and his injuries gradually stabilized. The Dragon Princess and the other women obediently waited outside, not daring to disturb Zhao Fu at all. 5 days later, Zhao Fu once again opened his eyes and breathed out a mouthful of impure air. By now, Zhao Fu's injuries had completely recovered, and he was pleasantly surprised to find that Zhao Fu's cultivation had broken through to the Great Earth Realm. After breaking through to the Great Earth Realm, Zhao Fu could use his own cultivation to draw out some heaven and earth power, making him even more powerful than before. Moreover, while Zhao Fu had been recovering, a massive wave of Outlander fate had stealthily entered Zhao Fu's body, causing the 34 totems to completely fuse with Zhao Fu's body. Back then, countless rainbow-colored lights had exploded out from Zhao Fu's back, and the auras of the 34 races had exploded out. This seemed incredibly chaotic and disorderly, and the various auras collided, causing Zhao Fu to fall into pain and feel as if his body was going to split apart. Following this, a massive wave of Outlander fate flowed into Zhao Fu's body, and only then did he gradually suppress these totems and fuse with them. Now, Zhao Fu could easily control these totems and could even use different totem powers. At the same time, within Zhao Fu's bloodline, there were various totem powers that could be passed down to the next generation. Chapter 1709. Boom. The massive stone mountain gave off an enormous golden ray of light that gave off a boundless aura as it rushed into the sky, resulting in a massive explosion. Intense waves of golden light spread out in the sky, instantly covering the entire secret realm. The entire sky became golden and gave off a noble, powerful, ancient, and supreme aura, as well as a formless might weighing down on everyone's bodies. System announcement. The restrictions on the King of Kings Mountain have disappeared, and anyone can now ascend the King of Kings Mountain. After this system announcement sounded out, countless people looked wild with joy and exploded out with powerful auras as they madly rushed up the stone mountain. Zhao Fu felt quite startled and did not understand what was going on. The people on the viewing platforms were also quite surprised. They had never thought that the rules would be different from before and that everyone could ascend the King of Kings Mountain. In the past, only the top 10 people had the right to ascend the King of Kings Mountain. Seeing countless people rush up the stone mountain, Zhao Fu also gave off a powerful aura and rushed up. Soon, Zhao Fu reached the top of the stone mountain. There was a smooth, rocky ground here, and it was quite big. However, there was nothing there other than a golden sword stabbed into the center of the ground. That golden sword was a two-handed sword. The hilt was covered in golden scales, and the tail was round. Where the blade and hilt met was the head of a ferocious beast, and the body of the sword was engraved with the totems of countless races. This sword gave off a supreme sword aura and gave off a noble, ancient, and powerful aura. The countless auras in the sky were all from this sword. This sword was not simple at all, and Zhao Fu looked at it seriously. In front of this sword, even with his divine bloodline, Zhao Fu felt some pressure. From this, it could be seen how terrifying this sword was, and its grade most likely surpassed that of the Emperor Killing Sword. Right now, the Emperor Killing Sword had not fully matured yet. Zhao Fu's Emperor Killing Sword was a sword that could grow, and the larger the Emperor Killing Sword world, the higher grade the sword would be. As such, it could not compare to this golden sword. However, Zhao Fu's Emperor Killing Sword had fused with Celestial Slaying Sword intent and the power of 5 Emperor Stars. It was an incredibly terrifying sword, but it could not compare to this golden sword. That golden sword was simply too terrifying. Because Zhao Fu had not investigated the King of Kings sword, he did not know what this sword was. However, seeing how everyone present, including the Sun Elf, looked incredibly excited, he understood that this sword was incredibly important. Countless people rushed forward. Some couldn't help but rush forward, wanting to pull out the golden sword that was stuck in the ground. Boom! The sword gave off a powerful golden wave of light and gave off a terrifying power, sending everyone flying back. Only then did the others stop and watch from the outside, not daring to go up. Even though the rules had changed, with how noble the King of Kings sword was, it was not something that just anyone could touch. As the 10th-ranked genius, the elephant person thought about it and exploded out with a powerful aura as he stepped forward. What shocked everyone was that the golden sword did not give off a golden wave of light. This made countless people feel quite discouraged. Their talent, power, and bloodlines were inferior to those terrifying geniuses, and they did not even have the right to get close. The elephant person felt quite nervous, and had never thought that things would turn out like this. He walked over to the King of Kings sword and looked at it, feeling quite nervous and excited. If he could pull it out, he would become the Outlander race's King of Kings, the most terrifying existence in the world. The elephant person felt incredibly excited and nervous as he gripped the sword hilt, and countless people also started to feel nervous. The elephant person vigorously pulled, but the sword did not budge at all, as if it was connected to the ground. The elephant person felt quite startled and gripped the sword with both hands. Arg! The elephant person roared and exploded out with terrifying power. A terrifying aura flame erupted around his body, sending out wild gales. The elephant person vigorously tried to pull, but the sword did not budge at all. The elephant person was quite unwilling and roared as he exploded out with an even more powerful aura. He gripped the sword with both hands and vigorously pulled, but he still did not succeed. The elephant person did not give up and continued to pull. Bang! The sword once again exploded out with immense power and sent the elephant person flying back. He crashed to the ground and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. He looked quite dispirited because he had completely lost his chance to become the King of Kings. The people in the surroundings looked quite disappointed, but they also let out sighs of relief. The King of Kings' sword was not something that ordinary people could pull out. Since the elephant person had failed, they now had a chance. The second person to go up, the three-headed ogre, smiled as he walked over to the golden sword and gripped it with both hands. He knew that it would be incredibly difficult to pull out the King of Kings' sword, so he immediately exploded out with his full strength. Boom! A massive aura exploded out as the three-headed ogre tightly gripped the sword with both hands and did his best to pull it out, but the sword did not budge at all. In the end, the three-headed ogre's expression was quite unsightly as he retreated. He understood that he would not be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword with his strength, so he could only return to where he was and wait for others to try and see if they could pull out the King of Kings' sword. The ordinary people in the surroundings naturally did not go up, as they did not even have the right to go up and grab the sword. If they went up, they would be forced back, so they could only obediently watch. Otherwise, they would also go up and try, hoping that they would be the King of Kings. The elephant person was ranked 10th and the three-headed ogre was ranked 7th. No one was too disappointed that they had failed, as they had expected this. Following this, the 9th-ranked Uluawa nervously went up and spread her wings, exploding out with intense light that covered the surroundings. However, the King of Kings' sword did not budge at all. In the end, she looked quite disappointed as she returned to where she had been and thought to herself, "Even a peerless genius can't pull out the King of Kings' sword, no wonder no one has been able to pull it out after so many years." The 8th-ranked orc also went up and tried, but he could not make the King of Kings' sword move at all. He returned to where he had been in disappointment, but he had already mentally prepared himself. If even the three-headed ogre, who was slightly stronger than him, could not pull it out, his chances would be even smaller. At that moment, the lion person gave off a powerful aura and had a grim expression as he came to the King of Kings' sword. He gripped the hilt with both hands and roared as a massive aura flame appeared. The lion person vigorously tried to pull, but the sword did not budge at all. Chapter 17:10. Hubaime also wanted to go up and see if she could pull out the King of Kings' sword. However, at that moment, a chubby pigman young man walked up first, surprising everyone. The King of Kings' sword did not give off any shockwaves to force the pigman young man back. This meant that the pigman young man had the right to go up and pull out the sword. Didn't this mean that he had the potential to rival the top 10 geniuses? Most people felt that this pigman young man was unfamiliar and had never seen or heard of him before. He was most likely one of those terrifying figures hidden in the crowd. Everyone felt quite interested in him and looked at him, waiting to see what he would do. The pigman young man walked up to the King of Kings' sword and gripped it with both hands, exploding out with an aura. A 10-meter-tall pigman image giving off terrifying power appeared behind the pigman young man. It raised its head to the sky and roared as a powerful aura exploded out. At that moment, the pigman young man roared and vigorously pulled the sword with both hands. A shocking thing happened. The King of Kings' sword slightly moved, causing countless people's minds to tremble as they stared at the King of Kings' sword. However, countless people were once again disappointed. The King of Kings' sword only moved slightly before it stopped moving. The pigman young man seemed to run out of strength and his body collapsed. In the end, the pigman young man returned to his original place with a dispirited look on his face. Even though the pigman young man had failed, This gave everyone some confidence because someone had finally caused the King of Kings' sword to slightly move. This was enough to make everyone feel quite excited. It was still possible to pull out the King of Kings' sword. At that moment, a powerful-looking Minotaur young man walked up, and the King of Kings' sword did not force him back. Everyone looked quite surprised. This was yet another terrifying figure hidden in the crowd. The Minotaur went up and gripped the sword with one hand as he roared. His muscles bulged as a powerful power exploded out. The Minotaur young man vigorously tried to pull the sword, but the King of Kings' sword did not move at all. The Minotaur held the sword with his other hand and roared, sending out a shockwave that turned into a wild gale. However, the sword still did not move at all. In the end, the Minotaur awkwardly returned to his original spot. He thought that since the pigman could move the sword a little, he might be able to pull it out a little. However, it turned out that he was inferior to the pigman youth. After that, a few more people walked up. Without exception, all of them were unfamiliar faces. The crowd had never heard of them before, and every single one of them was extremely powerful. Some of them were not any weaker than the top 10 geniuses, and belonged to the category of hidden and terrifying characters. Many people felt quite surprised. They had never thought that there would be so many powerful people hidden here. No one had sensed them before, and if it wasn't for the King of Kings' sword, they would not have appeared. Their goal was most likely the King of Kings' sword. After they failed, no one else went up. Hubaime gave a flirtatious smile and turned into a 10,000-meter-long 10-tailed fox, giving off an incredibly terrifying aura and sending out wild gales. With such a large body, she had a great advantage in terms of power. A casual strike from her could shatter a small mountain, and she was incredibly terrifying. Hubaime gripped the King of Kings' sword with a massive beast claw and pulled with terrifying power. The King of Kings' sword actually moved a little, and Hubaime felt quite delighted. She exploded out with a powerful aura and vigorously pulled, causing the King of Kings' sword to move a little more. Countless people's hearts tightened as they stared at the King of Kings' sword, but it did not move at all. In the end, Hubaime also failed, and she looked quite unhappy as she returned to her human form. She had never thought that the King of Kings' sword would be so difficult to pull out. The fourth-ranked dragon person also went up and tried. He succeeded in making the King of Kings' sword move a little before there was no reaction. The dragon person had expected this and was not too disappointed, and he returned to his original spot. At that moment, a black goat person walked up. He was an unfamiliar face and was a terrifying figure hidden in the crowd. He exploded out with a black aura flame and gripped the sword with both hands, causing the King of Kings' sword to slightly move. Boom! A massive aura spread out as the black aura flame became many times larger and turned into a black goat person that bit the King of Kings' sword. At the same time, he vigorously pulled with both hands, causing the King of Kings' sword to move a little more. Everyone was sent into an uproar. This was the first time someone had made the King of Kings' sword move 3 times, and they all looked at the goat person in shock. However, the goat person did not have any strength left, and he let go of the sword hilt as he returned to his original spot with a disappointed expression. Following this, a few more unfamiliar faces went up. Some of them made the King of Kings' sword slightly move, while others were unable to make it move at all. The Sun Elf gave off a sense of confidence and calmness as he stood there, not feeling panicked or nervous at all. He did not believe that this group of people could pull out the King of Kings' sword. If the King of Kings' sword could be pulled out so easily, it would not be the King of Kings' sword at all. The third-ranked dwarf went up and gripped the King of Kings' sword with both hands. He was not in a hurry to pull it out and instead closed his eyes and calmed himself down. A massive wave of power flowed into his legs, and a silver magic formation giving off a powerful aura appeared. The dwarf gripped the sword hilt and started to pull. The silver magic formation continuously spun and gave off a massive wave of power as it helped the dwarf. Shing! A sword hum suddenly sounded out as something shocking happened. The dwarf was able to pull out the King of Kings' sword a little. This was not making the sword move a little, but pulling out a little. This dwarf's strength was quite terrifying. Everyone looked at the dwarf nervously and expectantly, but no matter how much strength the dwarf used, the King of Kings' sword could not be pulled out at all. In the end, the dwarf ran out of strength and sighed as he returned to his original spot. The failure of every genius meant that every faction's hearts would shatter. They had great confidence in their geniuses and hoped that they would be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword and become the second King of Kings. But now their hopes had been dashed, causing the entire faction to be filled with disappointment and dejection. Their confidence had suffered a blow. The expressions of the people on the viewing platforms were quite unsightly. So many people had tried to pull out the King of Kings' sword, but they had all failed. At most, they had only been able to pull out a little. At that moment, Medusa slowly went up and was not in a hurry to pull out the King of Kings' sword. She gripped the sword with one hand and sent a massive wave of power into the King of Kings' sword. A green light covered the King of Kings' sword, and Medusa vigorously pulled. Shing! Chapter 17:11. However, Medusa was soon unable to pull it out at all. However, Medusa did not give up because of this, and she cried out as she exploded out with an even more powerful aura. A green aura flame appeared around her body as she pulled the sword out a bit more. Everyone once again felt nervous, but the sword gave off an unimaginable force as it continued to sink. Medusa gripped the sword, and after holding it for a while, she ran out of strength. Now everyone's gazes were on the Sun Elf. The person who had the most hope of pulling out the King of Kings' sword was him. If he could pull it out, no one else in the world would be able to do so. If the King of Kings' prophecy could not be fulfilled, who knew how long it would be before anyone could pull out the King of Kings' sword? This would be a massive loss for the entire Outlander race. Countless people hoped that someone would be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword and become the second King of Kings, leading the entire Outlander race to glory. At that moment, countless people looked at the Sun Elf. They placed all of their hopes on him, hoping that he could pull out the King of Kings' sword and bring glory to the Outlander race. As countless people watched on, the Sun Elf gave off a transcendent aura as he slowly walked over to the King of Kings' sword. He slowly closed his eyes and breathed out as he gripped the King of Kings' sword. He once again opened his eyes, and 2 rays of golden light flowed within them. A powerful aura spread out from his body, causing a wild gale to spread out. The Sun Elf vigorously pulled out the sword, and a sword hum sounded out as the King of Kings' sword was pulled out a bit. A ferocious sword chi storm spread out, and everyone in the surroundings took a step back as they looked at the Sun Elf anxiously. This Sun Elf was quite powerful. He had directly pulled out a bit. He was definitely the person who was most likely to pull out the King of Kings' sword. The Sun Elf sensed the King of Kings' sword and felt it sink with unimaginable power. The Sun Elf tightly gripped the King of Kings' sword, preventing it from sinking, and he roared as a powerful golden aura flame erupted around his body. Shing! A sword hum sounded out as the King of Kings' sword was pulled out a bit more, and a massive sword chi storm spread out. The sword was pulled out a bit more, and the downward force became many times greater. The Sun Elf gripped the sword hilt with all of his strength, and he could no longer hold on, causing his arms to tremble. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as countless azure starlight covered the sky, and a star giving off a massive pressure slowly descended. At the same time, a massive wave of power entered the Sun Elf's body. Clang! A massive sword hum once again sounded out, and a massive sword chi storm spread out, forcing everyone to retreat. The King of Kings' sword was pulled out by half an inch, and countless people stared at the Sun Elf, feeling incredibly nervous and filled with anticipation. They wondered if the Sun Elf would be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword. Clang! Another sword hum sounded out, but it was not the sound of a sword being drawn. Instead, it was the sound of a sword falling to the ground. The Sun Elf had not been able to draw it out at all, and the sword had fallen back to the ground. Countless people's hearts sank. Even the Sun Elf, who had the support of the Emperor's star, could not pull it out. Who else in this world could? There was no one left. Everyone's faces were gloomy, and they felt an indescribable sense of loss. The Sun Elf's expression was quite unsightly, and he tried again but was still unable to do it. He could only return to where he was and think to himself, "Can anyone really pull out the King of Kings' sword? I'm someone with the support of the Supreme Emperor's star, yet I can't do it. This means that no one can pull out the King of Kings' sword, and no one can become the second King of Kings." Suddenly, a figure walked up. It was not Zhao Fu but a blood-red-haired young man. He went up and grabbed the King of Kings' sword and vigorously pulled it out. Clang! A massive sword hum sounded out as a massive sword wind ferociously spread out. Countless people looked at the blood-red-haired young man in shock. Just who was this person? He had actually been able to pull the sword out by an inch. How terrifying! Countless people looked at the young man's body, feeling both nervous and filled with anticipation. They had never thought that he would actually be a bit stronger than the Sun Elf. The blood-red-haired young man was expressionless as he gripped the King of Kings' sword's hilt, and he felt an incredibly powerful downward force. Boom! An enormous blood-red flame exploded out, sending out an enormous gale that forced everyone back. An otherworldly aura that reigned above that of an emperor spread out, causing everyone to fall into terror. Countless people were once again shocked, and massive waves crashed in their hearts. This blood-red-haired young man was actually a holy son, and an Outlander race's holy son at that. Clang! A massive sword hum once again sounded out as an enormous sword chi storm containing terrifying power spread out. The King of Kings' sword was pulled out by another inch, and it was only 3 inches away from being pulled out. Countless people started to feel incredibly excited, feeling incredibly certain that this blood-red-haired young man was the person in the prophecy, the second King of Kings. Moreover, he had the Outlander race's divine bloodline. No one had thought that the Outlander race would also have a holy son. Clang! The blood-red-haired young man's expression was cold as he gripped the sword hilt and vigorously pulled. A sword hum once again sounded out as the King of Kings' sword was once again pulled out a bit. Everyone felt even more excited and expectant. Now they were only 2 inches away from being able to pull out the King of Kings' sword. Everyone could see that there was only a bit of strength left before the King of Kings' sword could be pulled out. The blood-red-haired young man gripped the sword hilt with one hand and felt an even more terrifying downward force. He coldly harumphed and exploded out with all of his strength. A terrifying aura spread out as blood-red rays of light shot into the sky, forming a blood-red pillar of light. World energy continuously flowed in, causing the heavens and earth to dim and clouds to swirl. The young man once again pulled out the King of Kings' sword a bit, and everyone looked delirious with delight as if they could already see the blood-red-haired young man pulling out the King of Kings' sword. Clang! A sword hum once again caused countless people to fall into the abyss, and the sword fell back into the slot. The blood-red-haired young man was in disbelief, and once again exploded out with even more power, but he was still unable to pull it out. In the end, he angrily returned to his original spot. Those with the Emperor's star and divine bloodline were unable to pull it out. Now, countless people felt despair, and were certain that no one in the world could pull out the King of Kings' sword. It was impossible for a King of Kings to appear. The first King of Kings' prophecy had been wrong. There was no one who could inherit his will and lead the Outlander race. The people in the surroundings felt incredibly dispirited, and did not have any confidence at all. Facing such a terrifying King of Kings' sword, they felt incredibly powerless and weak. Chapter 1712. Seeing Zhao Fu's actions, everyone felt quite startled and felt quite confused. Why was a member of the death race joining in on the fun? This is the King of Kings sword, a holy item of the Outlander race. It's not something an Outlander can touch. No matter how strong he is, it doesn't matter. Could it be that he doesn't know what the King of Kings sword is, so he's stupidly going up to try? However, it looks like he really doesn't know. Someone kindly reminded, Holy Son, that's an item of the Outlander race and is called the King of Kings sword. Other races cannot touch it or they will be attacked. Hearing this, Zhao Fu calmly nodded and continued to walk forwards. This made everyone feel quite confused. Now that someone had reminded him, why was he still going up? Did he not believe what they said? Or did he think that he was strong enough to pull out the King of Kings sword? Some people felt as if they could see Zhao Fu making a fool of himself. Before he could even reach the King of Kings sword, he would be sent flying back by it. However, he had brought this upon himself. He thought that he could pull out the King of Kings sword with great power. Now that someone had reminded him that only the Outlander race could go up and pull out the King of Kings sword, he was too arrogant and could not blame anyone for making a fool of himself. Everyone present looked as if they wanted to see Zhao Fu make a fool of himself. They did not believe that a member of the death race could go up and pull out the King of Kings sword. The 9 geniuses and those hidden terrifying figures all looked at Zhao Fu. They knew how terrifying Zhao Fu's power was, and he was even more powerful than the Sun Elf. If he was from the Outlander race, he would be more likely to be able to pull out the King of Kings sword, but he was not from the Outlander race. They naturally did not believe that Zhao Fu could go up and pull out the sword. They had personally gone up and knew how terrifying the King of Kings sword was. If a member of the death race like Zhao Fu went up, he would definitely be forced back by the King of Kings sword. Hu Baimei lightly harumphed and said to Zhao Fu, I already told you that's our Outlander race's King of Kings sword. A member of the death race like you doesn't have the right to go up and pull it out, so why are you going up? Do you think we would lie to you? Medusa reminded Zhao Fu, this is an Outlander race's supreme relic. As a member of the death race, you won't be able to go up and pull it out, and you might even be in great danger. After all, going up to pull out an Outlander race's supreme relic is a very dangerous thing. The lion person said seriously, Holy Son, you're right. As a holy son of the ghost race, you'll definitely be violently rejected by the foreign race's holy artifact. At that time, you'll be in extreme danger, and your life might even be in danger. Hearing these words, Zhao Fu chuckled and said, I know, but I just want to go forward and try to see if I can pull out that sword. When the people in the surroundings heard that Zhao Fu was determined to go up and court death, they thought that they would just wait for him to make a fool of himself. He really didn't know what was good for him. Even though they told him not to go, he still went. However, it was also a happy thing to see such a terrifying person make a fool of himself. It was also very rare. Thinking about that, everyone smiled and waited for Zhao Fu to go up and draw the sword. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the Sun Elf said coldly, Don't be too arrogant. You're powerful, but that's an Outlander race's holy artifact. There's no need for you to try. You don't even have the right to draw it, so how can you pull out the King of Kings sword? Also, as the death race's holy son, if you go up and trigger a violent reaction from the King of Kings sword and it wants to kill you, no one will be able to save you. I don't want to see you die before I even defeat you. The blood-haired young man looked at Zhao Fu and felt quite curious about Zhao Fu. He did not know where Zhao Fu was from and where he had a divine bloodline. He had never heard of this person before. However, the blood-haired young man did not believe that Zhao Fu would be able to pull out the King of Kings sword. Even he, as a holy son of the Outlander race, could not pull it out, so how could a holy son of the death race do it? The people on the stage had been quite dispirited and did not have any confidence at all. They had thought that the prophecy would come true and that the second King of Kings would appear. However, what made them feel despair was that not even the Supreme Emperor Star or the Outlander race's Holy Sun could do it. Who else could pull out the sword? Seeing Zhao Fu, a death race person, go up, they looked in disbelief, and some people even mocked him. A death race person like him can pull out the King of Kings sword. Even if you beat me to death, I wouldn't believe it. Just wait for him to be beaten up by the King of Kings sword. Ha ha ha! A death race person going up to pull out the King of Kings sword? No one would believe such a joke. I feel that this person is seeking death. However, it's good that he's a holy son of the death race. It'll be a great loss for the death race. That's right. After all, he's from the death race and not from our race. With how monstrous his power is, he might be a disaster for our race in the future. Perhaps the King of Kings sword thinks the same and feels like that person will definitely die if he goes up. Let's wait for that person to make a fool of himself. He's overestimating himself. It was not just the countless people on the viewing platforms who felt this way. The large factions on Zhao Fu's side also looked in disbelief, and they were certain that Zhao Fu had pulled out the King of Kings sword. They felt that Zhao Fu had acted rashly and had been too arrogant. He had continuously tried to persuade Zhao Fu to pull out the King of Kings sword and had put himself in grave danger. Their goodwill towards Zhao Fu had decreased. They felt that even though Zhao Fu's bloodline power was powerful, his mind was not mature enough and needed more training. The Academy's teachers could not believe this. Zhao Fu, a member of the death race, had pulled out the King of Kings sword. The bear race elder frowned and said, "He's too arrogant this time. That's the Outlander race's King of Kings sword. Outlander geniuses can try, but a death race holy son like him might really be killed by the King of Kings sword. The King of Kings sword is our Outlander race's holy item, and it will definitely stand on our side. If an ordinary Outlander tried to go up, they would most likely be sent flying. However, if a death race holy son goes up, the King of Kings sword might be able to kill this threat, and the King of Kings sword will definitely be infuriated." The gnome elder nodded and said, "So many people have tried to persuade him, but he still wants to try. He looks down on the Outlander race's King of Kings sword too much. Perhaps he has been pampered in the Holy Empire for too long and does not know that there are things in the world that even the Holy Empire does not have." The stern-looking middle-aged man said worriedly, "His identity is so terrifying. If he really dies in the mystic realm, the force behind him will definitely cause trouble. This is not a good thing for our academy." Chapter 17:13. The fox race man smiled and nodded. "I think so too. We don't have to worry too much, and we don't have to be too disappointed either. We've been waiting for the person who caused the 23 statues to react, but he still hasn't appeared. As long as the secret realm doesn't close, there's still a chance that the prophecy will come true." Hearing this, everyone thought about it and felt a bit better. They had almost forgotten about that terrifying hidden figure. He was the person who had a good chance of pulling out the King of Kings sword, and perhaps he was the prophesied person. Now, everyone's gazes were gathered on Zhao Fu's body. However, they were not looking to see how Zhao Fu would draw the sword but how Zhao Fu would make a fool of himself and seek his own death. Zhao Fu's expression did not change, and he looked quite calm as he slowly walked towards the King of Kings sword. Seeing Zhao Fu get closer and closer to the King of Kings sword, everyone started to feel nervous. They waited for the King of Kings sword to explode out with terrifying power to push back or even kill Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu walked forward step by step, and he finally stepped into the King of Kings sword's range. Boom! An explosion sounded out as a massive aura exploded out. A 3-meter-tall golden aura flame burst forth from the King of Kings sword, sending out powerful gales that spread out. Everyone grinned, and some people could not help but yell out. They had told him not to go, and now he had caused such a reaction from the King of Kings sword. Now, not only would he make a fool of himself, but his life might also be in danger. The geniuses standing closest to Zhao Fu became wary in case the King of Kings' sword's terrifying power reached them. This was the King of Kings' sword, the Outlander race's holy item, and it was the most terrifying thing. They did not dare to underestimate it, as they could lose their lives. Zhao Fu did not mind the King of Kings' sword's terrifying ripples and continued forwards. Everyone's hearts tightened, and they could not help but retreat. It was as if they could already see the King of Kings' sword exploding out with terrifying sword energy. However, to everyone's surprise, nothing happened to Zhao Fu as he walked forwards. This made countless people feel quite confused, and they could not understand what was going on. The King of Kings' sword had clearly given off such powerful ripples, so why did it not attack Zhao Fu? Zhao Fu ignored everyone's gazes and walked forwards. He came to the King of Kings' sword's side and stretched out a hand to grasp the sword's hilt. The surroundings and viewing platforms were sent into an uproar. Countless people stared at this scene with wide eyes. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would not be attacked and could even touch the King of Kings' sword. Just what was going on? Just as Zhao Fu touched the sword, he felt a sense of familiarity. Wasn't this the power that had guided him to challenge the top 10 geniuses? Now that he was holding the sword, Zhao Fu could sense just how terrifying this sword was. His expression became serious as he stood in front of the sword and gripped it with both hands. He closed his eyes and lightly breathed out. However, how could someone from the Death race pull out the Outlander race's holy sword? It's already a miracle that he was able to touch the King of Kings' sword. Now, everyone's minds were in chaos, and they could not understand why the King of Kings' sword had not forced back Zhao Fu, a member of the Death race, and it seemed like it wanted him to draw the sword. However, he was not from the Outlander race. Now, everyone's minds were in chaos. They could not understand why the King of Kings' sword had not forced Zhao Fu back, and it seemed to have allowed him to draw the sword. However, he was not an Outlander. Xing. Everyone's minds were in chaos, and they could not understand why the King of Kings' sword had not forced back Zhao Fu, a member of the Death race, and it seemed like it wanted him to draw the sword. However, he was not from the Outlander race. Xing. A massive sword hum sounded out as a massive storm of sword chi spread out, attacking in all directions. Countless people looked incredibly shocked. They had never thought that that person would be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword by an inch. This was a bit more than the Holy Sun from before, which meant that this person had more potential than the Holy Sun or was even more powerful. At that moment, Zhao Fu sensed the terrifying downward force from the sword, and he gripped the sword's hilt with both hands. If he was not careful, he might fall back to the ground. Boom! Zhao Fu did not hide anything and exploded out with his divine bloodline's power. A massive black aura flame erupted around Zhao Fu's body, giving off a transcendent power that reigned above the Emperor realm. Standing by the side, the blood-haired young man looked at Zhao Fu in shock. He found that Zhao Fu's divine bloodline's aura was a bit stronger than his. Just who was this person? Xing. A sword hum once again sounded out, and an even greater sword chi storm spread out, attacking the surroundings. The sword was pulled out by another inch, and it was only 2 inches away. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu in disbelief. Could this person from the Death race really be able to pull out the King of Kings' sword? At that moment, Zhao Fu sensed the King of Kings' sword's massive downward force. If he did not use all of his strength to hold onto the sword, it was possible that the sword would fall back. Moreover, it would be incredibly difficult to pull it out again. Arg! Zhao Fu gripped the sword with both hands and roared as he exploded out with a terrifying aura. The totem power within his body was activated, and countless colors of light shot out from Zhao Fu's back as 34 different Outlander auras flowed out. Swish, 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 34 different colored rays of light shot out from Zhao Fu's back, which shot into the sky and turned into 34 different races. There were dragon people, rat folk, lion people, giants, cat people, kobolds, elves. The 34 figures represented 34 large races, and they stood in the sky, forming a circle with Zhao Fu at the center. This scene caused countless people to feel even more shock. Why did that person have so much totem power? Why did he have the auras of 34 different races, and why did the light he shot out form the figures of 34 different races? Everyone could not understand, and their minds went blank. At that moment, Zhao Fu roared as he gripped the sword with both hands and used all of his strength to pull it up. The 34 figures in the sky exploded out with powerful auras, and their bodies gave off all sorts of lights. Shing! A sword hum sounded out throughout the heavens and earth, and countless rays of golden sword light shot out in all directions. A terrifying golden sword chi storm containing terrifying power swept out, causing countless people to retreat in panic. What was even more unbelievable was that the death race person had actually pulled out the King of Kings sword. The first King of Kings prophecy had been fulfilled, and the King of Kings sword, which should have been impossible to pull out, had actually been pulled out. Chapter 17:14. However, how could someone from the death race draw the King of Kings sword? Everyone could not understand this, and it was quite strange that someone from the death race had become the ruler of the Outlander race. However, everyone was once again shocked. That person's death race aura dissipated and a pure Outlander aura exploded out, turning into a flood that swept everything in the surroundings. Only then did everyone realize that they had been wrong. That person was not from the death race at all, whether it was his identity or bloodline, he was from the purest Outlander race. Countless people's eyes widened as they stared at the scene in front of them. They had never thought that things would turn out like this. The person they had been mocking was the future King of Kings, and because of their shock, they could not say anything at all. Zhao Fu drew the King of Kings sword with both hands and felt a massive wave of power flow into his body. The barrier that had been blocking the awakening of the Emperor's star was instantly torn apart. Zhao Fu held the King of Kings sword with one hand and pointed it towards the sky as he roared and sent a terrifying wave of power into the sword. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, shaking the entire world. It was not just the people in the secret realm who heard this but also the people on the viewing platforms. More than half of the Outlander domain heard this shocking explosion, and they all stopped what they were doing and looked towards Outlander 10 College. An enormous golden sword light containing terrifying power shot into the sky, seeming to tear a hole in the sky. A massive storm of sword chi blew out, and the people in the surroundings quickly retreated, not daring to stay nearby. The heavens and earth started to change as the sun and moon dimmed and clouds swirled. A massive might spread out from the sky, causing countless people's bodies to sink and their bloodlines to feel cold. They instinctively felt terror and they knelt down. Sensing this aura, it was not just the people in the secret realm who looked up in shock. The people on the viewing platforms also looked up in shock, and massive waves crashed in their hearts. Countless traces of green starlight spread out, and the entire Outlander race's fate gathered. Perhaps it was because of the King of Kings sword, but the green light covered the entire Outlander domain, and the sky became completely green. A chaotic, powerful, ferocious, and noble aura flooded out from the sky, instantly inundating everything. Nothing could stop it, and the aura became greater and greater until it covered the entire heaven domain. All of the heaven domain's fate surged, quickly gathering in that direction. Heaven and earth's colors changed as winds and clouds surged. All of the auras became chaotic, and there was a sense of pressure and danger that came before a terrifying disaster. At that moment, countless terrifying figures in seclusion opened their eyes and looked into the sky in shock. They weren't the only ones. The people from the human realm, ghost realm, demon realm, god realm, spirit realm, demon realm, and water realm also sensed this shocking aura. They all looked in the direction of the other side with shocked expressions. In the human realm's Tiandao sect, a white-haired elder stood on a mountain peak, looking in the direction of the foreign land in shock. A young man next to him also sensed that terrifying aura and said seriously, "Master, this is the revered teacher. This ripple is most likely from someone from the Outlander race awakening a supreme emperor star. It's rare to see such a large ripple, and it's much greater than the ripple from my celestial emperor star. That person might be extremely terrifying and will be a powerful opponent for me." The elder looked into the distance in shock and said seriously, "It's not as simple as an Outlander Emperor Star awakening. That Supreme Emperor Star has the aura of a King of Kings. The first Outlander King of Kings prophecy has been fulfilled. Someone has really pulled out the King of Kings sword and inherited his will, becoming the second King of Kings. Now the Outlander race is truly going to rise up." Hearing the King of Kings' words, a look of shock appeared on the young man's face. The King of Kings was the most terrifying person of that era, and no one in the 9 heavens and 10 lands dared to contend with him. Even now, his fame shook the world and left behind countless legend. Now that he heard that someone had inherited his will and become the second King of Kings, he naturally felt incredibly shocked. A ferocious-looking middle-aged man from the demon domain said seriously, "Who would have thought that the prophecy would be fulfilled today? That successor has given off terrifying ripples, and he's most likely not an ordinary person. Otherwise, he would not have inherited the King of Kings' will. If he really can be like the King of Kings and unify the entire Outlander race, who can stop him? No one will be able to stop him, and the Outlander race's golden age will once again be reborn. The God race, demon race, and devil race will not dare to contend with him. No, we have to stop this. If that person really does lead the Outlander race, the demon race will not have good days in the future." Back then, the King of Kings era was the demon race's weakest era, and this was a great humiliation in the demon race's history. The middle-aged man gave off a terrifying aura as he turned into a ray of light and shot towards the Outlander domain. Within the Devil Domain's Dragon Emperor Palace, a well-built elder with a golden dragon horn said in shock, "The Outlander race has been incredibly lucky this time. The second King of Kings has appeared as an Emperor Star, and the amount of fate he has gathered is simply unimaginable. It's possible that the second King of Kings will grow into a terrifying existence like the first King of Kings. We can't allow such a terrifying person to live, or else if a second King of Kings appears, the other 7 races will suffer calamity. We can't allow the events of that era to happen again." The Dragon Race Elder gave off a terrifying aura as he turned into a ray of light and disappeared over the horizon as he shot towards the Outlander domain. Within a holy and white temple in the God domain, a young man giving off intense holy light sat on a throne with a cold expression. Below him were countless white-armored divine guards, and the atmosphere was quite oppressive. Who would have thought that the king's prophecy would come true? After so many years, there really would be someone who would inherit his will. However, with the lesson from the first time, the second King of Kings definitely cannot be allowed to live. Back then, when the King of Kings existed, it was the worst of times. Our God race suffered great humiliation, and the great God race cannot be sullied. Send out orders for all of the God domain's experts to gather and head towards the Outlander race. No matter what we do, we cannot allow the Outlander race to protect the second King of Kings. We must get rid of this person, or else the entire God race will suffer calamity in the future. Yes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.